When Google was founded with In-Q-Tel CIA money in 1998, they said at the founding meeting, and this is in Wired Magazine in public, they said, we're building the first AI, and it'll be the dominant AI, because what it really is a machine-human interface that'll have billions of human nodes like brain cells, will know everything you do, will track what you do, will manipulate what you do, will know you better than you.
It's this illusion of choice, and we're actually happy about getting the leader that we pick, a controller that we pick, when none of them actually deserve to control another person, right? Like, say I was born a specific bloodline and I'm going to tell Alex Jones what you can and can't do. It's just inherently wrong.
It's the imperfection of humanity. But if we're informed and we're engaged and we're involved and we ourselves don't get in cliques and really make it about issues, then I think it's like the free market when it's actually manifest, which is very rare. It creates incredible things because our desires and our collective will is individual in its application, but in its overall administration collective. We all individually make decisions, but collectively it manifests. And so that's the direction I want to go, is the knowledge of the crowd.
About 5 years ago, I think it was around 5 years ago, you were deplatformed from 100 different websites, social media outfits, etc., all in one concerted effort, which to me was like the first domino. And I was bothered by it, not only by the fact that it happened, whether or not I agreed with you or not, or I didn't, even if it was someone I didn't agree with and hated their perspective, I would have still been terrified and pissed off. What I found most frustrating about it was that very few people stood up for you in the alternative media. And I thought that was short-sighted, because eventually when that happens, the rest of the dominoes are going to fall.
Well, as important as I'd like to make myself, it really wasn't about me. So you really centered it on the central issue. I was just chosen. This has now come out in congressional hearings. It's come out in Wall Street Journal articles and other publications that they wanted to choose somebody that was flamboyant and that had said some things out of context that you could really demonize. So then build up a big straw man and then just literally have thousands of articles a month, hundreds of TV programs a month at some points. Sometimes I had a Google, link reporting back hits. And some days it was like 10,000 or more because one AP article would be put in hundreds of newspapers. But some days there were thousands of publications attacking me. Some nights, almost every national TV program, cable, PBS, ABC, NBC, CBS, broadcast news. We turn on local Time Warner TV. They have a channel here, a news channel, and it would be demonizing me every night, no matter what TV I turned on. It was just everywhere. And that was done so that when they demonized me, people would then go along with it. And then once they hadn't stood up for me, then nobody would stand up for them. And so it was a very sophisticated, smart, cold-blooded thing they did. And I was just chosen because I was very popular. And also I was flamboyant, and there was a lot of stuff taken out of context. And I'm certainly not perfect. I made mistakes too, but almost everything that they blew up was totally distorted past any type of recognizable features of what I actually done. And so that's the thing about being censored too, is once they censor you, they can then build any straw man they want. And so they don't just silence you, they steal your identity. And now you become a symbol that they use, the false symbol, but then that becomes your identity. But the world's more sophisticated than that. A lot of people saw through it, and I was able to stay on my own show and be on some talk radio stations and have my own website, InfoWars.com, and my own daily show and serve it up directly to people. So folks got wise to it. And then when the system came in and censored hundreds of millions of people around the world, really billions, we now know, with the algorithms and the controls and the surveillance, it has really boomeranged back on them. But at the end of the day, it's just been one hell of an experience, because the propaganda they used against me was the level of propaganda they'd used before they invade a country. But again, it wasn't because Alex Jones was so fabulous and amazing. It was actually because I could be distorted easily because I'd said a lot of things out of context. And so it's definitely historical. And now we're living in a whole new world.
Well, the thing that I think is funny about that, and kind of, I don't know, almost just stupid on behalf of the controllers is that when you silence someone, it makes a certain demographic of people want to hear what they have to say even more, right? It's like when you tell a kid not to listen to heavy metal, what are they going to do? Listen to heavy metal, right? And additionally, if the things you've been saying for the past 29 years were just completely insane and false, then no one would care to take the time and effort that they obviously took with all the propaganda and the deplatforming. So I think to any rational person who would doubt some of the rather prophetic statements you've made that have proven themselves to be true, unfortunately, in many cases, it only lends credibility to your message because they would just ignore you, right? There's many people on the internet and social media that are just absolutely out of their mind and they're just kind of entertaining and they're not censored because they're so far off the mark, so obviously that no one really pays attention. So I've always thought if Alex Jones is so mistaken about all of the things he talks about, then why do they care? Why don't they just leave him alone? So it's like...
Well, that is one of the reasons they chose me. There was a big Wall Street Journal article, not just the pop Wall Street Journal, but behind their paywall, about 6 months before I got deplatformed. And as you said, Tim Cook bragged at Apple that he met with the big tech heads, the big 5 companies, 6 companies, and they banned me on a Monday morning. And then, I mean, depending on the size of the company, well over 100 companies the next few weeks all followed suit. Software companies, we were renting software from companies that were doing the cleaning of the office. I mean, LinkedIn kicked us off. I mean, it was just over 100 things the next month or so. And he said, we're curating. I'm not going to say why we banned Alex Jones, but it's just the best thing to do. And so they see it as curating our minds. But the Wall Street Journal article basically was like a 35-page behind the paywall article. It was written to investors, and it said, listen, we've met with NATO. Strangely enough, we've had meetings in Germany just a month ago. They were saying 5 years ago. And we're going to take out Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And he was already on, locked up in the Ecuadorian embassy at that time, not in solitary confinement yet. And they said, when we take out WikiLeaks and the left doesn't stand up, we've got them. They actually said this. And they said, when we take out Alex Jones, not that I'm even right wing, but that's how they saw me, and the right doesn't stand up because we're going to demonize him so much beforehand, then we'll be able to shut down all these thousands of really prominent voices that we don't control. Whether it was politically something they didn't control, or whether it was music or culture or religion or spirituality, they were threatened by no one wants to watch ABC, NBC, HBO anymore, or Vice for that matter. And so they said in this big article, don't worry to investors, because soon, once we take care of Julian Assange and Alex Jones, then we'll be able to take everybody out with these filters and controls. This is not just political. This is about cementing legacy media being able to be dominant in the future. So they made it about Alex Jones and Julian Assange, demonizes people didn't stand up for us like they should. Then it's all the political people get shut down. But then beyond that, it's even inside political parties. If the Republican establishment's threatened by somebody, they have them shut down, or the Democrats don't like somebody, or somebody's anti-war, or somebody's got a better company or a better idea. I mean, it really is about total domination, not even political. I mean, politics is just the realm of that control. The target is not just, people that are criticizing the World Economic Forum or the Davos Group or Microsoft. It is absolutely about culture control. And the establishment's owned Hollywood for so long, they've controlled it. They've been able to you go watch these big candle-lit chandelier dinners with the white ties, the black ties, and it's the Henry Kissinger and his wife and all these old Hollywood globalists like Sumner Redstone, and they're just stumbling along like Skeksis and Dark Crystal in control of movies and culture. And now that that's all moved away, this fit is a lot bigger than just political stuff. It's because they don't control the cultural zeitgeist. And spiritually, there's a breaking apart where people are either way more dumbed down and unconscious, as we see everywhere, or you can't help with the consciousness rising and you're resonating with it. Yours can't help but go up if you're even dialed in a little bit. So there's no knife's edge here where you're either, on the knife's edge. There's either you're being dumbed down or you're transcending. And so they're really scared because they've been controlling this dumbed down mass because they themselves are basically, just the top of that pyramid of unconnected people, disconnected people. And so they're mainly just threatened by the spiritual revolution.
The thing that's interesting to me, too, about the censorship is, it's actually just infuriating, is the hypocrisy. You have, the Bushes, Rumsfeld, the Clintons, Obamas, Henry Kissinger. You have people that are, not to mention everyone on the Epstein flight logs, you have people that are suspect of abusing children, or Joe Biden abusing children on camera. At the very least, invading their boundaries in a very inappropriate way. I'm sure you've seen these montages.
Sure, he's acting like a total archetypal creep.
Yeah, and so you have people that are war criminals that are indirectly and sometimes directly responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of innocent people over all of these years of these meaningless, pointless wars. None of those people are deplatformed or censored. And a guy like you, who's just literally talking behind a microphone, that just is so infuriating to me.
Well, that's a great point that I mean to make more often. And it's not about me, but they build up an Alex Jones or a Julian Assange as this horrible devil, this terrible person. And then meanwhile, you have dictators that are on Twitter, which I think they should be there. We share what they have to say and know what they're doing. And, we have a right to hear that and see that. I think it's important that all voices be heard. But here's something really important for people. I'm not going to even say the names. Everybody knows it. I was not deplatformed for what people know me as being deplatformed for. Tim Cook said, we decided to curate him. It's a Vice interview. I got him together. He's just a bad person. And they said that I was mean to a CNN reporter, Oliver Darcy, and that's the reason I was taken off Twitter. You can look it up. They had the head lawyer on Joe Rogan's show with Jack Dorsey, and they admitted all that. Then they went, whoa, this backfired. We didn't even have a reason. So they went to my timeline, like a Final Cut Pro timeline, and just blew up something out of context and then lied about what I did, and then said that in the present tense, I was doing something I'd never done, and just had thousands of articles and thousands of thousands. Every day, everywhere, he's doing this. He's attacking people. He's going to their houses. He's peeing on their graves. There's no video of this. Never said it. Never did any of it. Took a few calls. Yeah, I hear you. Soundstage to me. That's it. And so that is the power of the PSYOP. But again, it was so the George W. Bushes, the warmongers, the Donald Rumsfelds could then, the Bill Clintons, the Tony Blairs, could point their finger at me and say, that's the bad guy. And remember, under Bush and the Clintons and all them, we know they were bringing in drugs to me in Arkansas. That's all come out. We know that it was a staged election in 1993. But they acted like they were fighting. But the good thing about the populist awakening the last 15 years or so is now it's Obama and the Clintons and the Bushes. They're all together. They admit they're vacationing. Before the Bush senior died, he said, I've been vacationing with Bill Clinton since 1987. This was staged. He's a member of the family. He's actually a Rockefeller, illegitimate Rockefeller. But the point is that this is a CIA club. This is a coup club, and that's what it is. And so absolutely, people that say that I'm evil and bad, and they say it with like this vitriol, shut him down. He was mean to these people. And then they can't even show what I did. Did I lie about WMDs in Iraq? And did I, like Madeleine Albright said on 60 Minutes, Leslie Stahl says, well, 500,000 children have died under your sanctions. Is it a good price to pay? And she says, yes, it's a good price to pay. Now, remember, Herbert Walker Bush had put really bad sanctions on him, and that had killed less than 200,000 people. But then when Clinton got in, Madeleine Albright basically tripled the sanctions. No medicine, nothing. And that was an industrial country that had a large population from oil sales. So it'd be like if America had all its medicine, fuel, and stuff cut off for many years. And so it turned out to be about 1 million children died, another 1 million adults. But when they asked her about it, it was 500,000. And she says 500,000 children is a good price to pay for security in the Middle East. So, we talk about Israel right now, carpet bombing Gaza, which I think is terrible, and those children don't deserve to die. But I also see that it was bad what happened to Israel. That's terrible. But where was the media when Bill Clinton and Madeleine Albright were killing millions of people through sanctions and bragging on TV that it was a good thing to do? They do it again. So bottom line, I want to talk about myself all day. It is just crazy to watch people bragging about mass war crimes. that on purpose killed over 1 million Iraqi children for absolutely no reason. And then I'm the bad guy, and this woman is celebrated. They're all celebrated. So all I say is what Christ said. He without sin cast the first stone. And just what you were talking about earlier, I didn't used to be a Republican or Democrat 30 years ago, 25 years ago, because Republicans were establishment, blue blood, warmongers that wanted to put you in jail for marijuana and wanted to put you in jail for cuss words and rap music. But also in the Democrats, I disagree with some of their ideas about victim disarmament and things. It's not the Republicans are even that great now. They're just more of a populist beachhead that's trying to do something in the Republican Party. But I look at the Democratic Party, and I look at what used to be good liberal people I knew, and they are literally pro-war, pro-censorship, pro-surveillance, pro-intelligence agencies domestically operating. Since when did Democrats become raving fascist? And so I think that the dichotomy is Republicans woke up that the Republican Party are a bunch of warmongers and are evil. And the average liberal woke up the Democratic Party is corrupt as well. So a lot of people don't have a home right now.
Yeah, I agree. There's not a name for people that I think are just good-hearted people that don't want war and government corruption, and that also, value the individual and want to have an opportunity to thrive and prosper and benefit from their labor. I don't consider myself anything. But the funny thing is about you is it's been interesting to see you framed as like this right-wing guy. When I first heard your stuff, I think it was shortly after 9/11. That was my red pill of all time. And you were going after the Bushes and all these warmongers. I mean, I would have considered you, if I had to categorize you back then, as a liberal or libertarian for all intensive purposes, because the people that you were really going after tended to be the right-wing people. But there's been this cultural and political inversion where the tables have kind of turned now, as you described. And I think many people kind of don't know where they land. They just want to be left alone and live their life and make a living and take care of their family.
Well, I think that's it. Just people that want to live and let live and be prosperous. They want to build a Renaissance economy instead of a warmongering conquest economy. And I was against the Clintons because I knew they were corrupt. I was against the Bushes because I knew they were corrupt. And they were part of the establishment. And so whoever was in power doing bad things, I was trying to limit their power and be a check and balance on it. And so it's beyond liberal or conservative. I was just trying to put checks on the power structure.
In terms of the censorship, one thing that surprises me, and I should knock on wood because I don't want to manifest this, but I'm shocked that the internet is still live, right? Despite the censorship. I mean, even when they deplatform you from all these different companies and whatnot, I'm just like, why don't they just shut down the internet or shut down InfoWars or shut down, my website or anyone that's kind of contrarian? Do you see that as a feasibility, or are their financial interests too tied into the internet at large for them just to nuke it? And, like the internet in China or different places, North Korea, right, where there's internet, but there's things you can't see. Like if you check into certain hotels, you can't access certain websites and things like that. I mean, why is the internet even still alive? Because I think it's so obvious now that the internet has been, and I think will be, the downfall of the controllers. I mean, the mass spread of information is what's waking up the vast majority of people. I mean, I see 20-year-olds on TikTok talking about the Knights Templar and the Bilderberg group and all the shit. It's like the information is out there and maybe they can't put the cat back in the bag.
Well, I think the best way to get into this is this. I am nothing special. I'm actually just a messenger that was awake at the beginning of the last big wave that's basically already broken. And now I can tell you the next big wave is 100 times bigger. And so I'm part of the last wave, and I was at the beginning of the last wave. And the waves before me were the old timers that knew about the globalist plan, was a few publishers, a few dozen people, maybe reaching 1 million people a decade.
Was this like Jordan Maxwell
Absolutely.
And William Cooper and
absolutely, and I would say G. Edward Griffin and
G. Edward Griffin,
people like that, exactly. Well, no, so many great people. And I mean, there were so many. Anthony's.
They were kind of pre-internet though too. I mean, they were still producing stuff, but they started getting their message out to a much smaller grassroots kind of group of people. Whereas when you came along, the internet was kind of exploding, and you're making DVDs and going.
Well, that was it. It was just that I was already somebody researching all their work, and people like Anthony Sutton, that was the chief advisor to the Senate and Frank Church Committee. I mean, that was a scholar. I read like all 4 of his books, and used to talk to him on the phone. He was very humble and old, and thought he was too old to come on the show. But I talked to Sutton quite a bit on the phone when he was in the nursing home, and he was the chief archivist of the Senate. So he had access to all the classified stuff, and it was all, being set up then, prepared, the world government, the end of the family, all this stuff. And so, exactly, it's not even so much who you are, it's who you know and what time you come along. And so that's want to be clear is I just came along right at the right time. And so there were all these incredible men and women before me that were literally voices in the wilderness that almost no one heard from. And it was because where they were, you're the chief archivist of the Senate, you see all these real documents. And so, but to answer your question about the internet was designed by ARPA that became DARPA. And that's kind of the big brain trust, secret scientist, mad scientist, cutting edge of the establishment. And it's a lot of diverse people and groups in there at the think tank level. But, in the end, it's where the big financiers, the big bankers decide to spend the money. And in the late 1950s, they developed a secret program called the Intergalactic Communication System. And then the first time they admit any document that they were going to deploy it was in 1961 as the Intergalactic Communication System. And it was not set up to stop the Russians if it was a nuclear war. That was just when they popularized it. And that was one reason in the 80s they wanted to go ahead and start deploying it to Reagan was, well, what are the Russians nuke us? We don't want this to be government facilities talking to each other now with underground cables. We want it to now be everywhere. But the Intergalactic Communication System was postulated, anybody can look this up, by a DARPA psychiatrist. And his plan got picked up and agreed to, that they'd have central computers all around towns and cities. You'd have a handheld computer as soon as they could make them small enough that you would plug into it daily, and it would download your actions and what you did, and then it would direct you, similar to that Bill Gates patent from a few years ago, where it directs everywhere you go. And so as a theoretical plan, it's genius, but also a very, very authoritarian, totalitarian. It's pure, autocratic technocracy. And they were going to use that, they said, with big, giant TV screens everywhere that would be programming the public how to behave, what to do, and then giving them orders on their little computer box they carried around with them. They could also then, if they wanted to get video messages or TV messages, plug into this larger screen. It's all described in the patents and all of it. There's over 100 of them. And that they would then use that to gauge the programming of the public. And they wanted to create a hive mind. And then when Google was founded with In-Q-Tel CIA money in 1998, they said at the founding meeting, and this is in Wired Magazine in public, they said, we're building the first AI, and it'll be the dominant AI, because what it really is a machine-human interface that'll have billions of human nodes like brain cells. We'll know everything you do. We'll track what you do. We'll manipulate what you do. We'll know you better than you. But because it's a machine-human interface, it is the AI. It's us and the computer. And they think it went what you'd call sentient probably 10 years ago, because you're like, well, the machine's not sentient. It doesn't matter. A real AI is measured by how much it can control what we do. It's like red light cameras or stoplight systems aren't smart, but masses of people follow the orders of the simple pattern. And so it's an interface with humans, which now it's controlling an advanced intelligence. So it shows it's actually a form of AI. That's my own view on it. But so basically they set it up to be a interface to merge cybernetically with humans in a mass. And obviously the technology changed and the direction they were going had to be augmented and tailored and recalibrated as they went. But it was designed to interface with humans. Well, humans can't even control our conscious minds, much less their subconscious or unconscious. And so it's like ghosts in the machine. And so despite all their efforts to control it and to manipulate it and to make us subservient to it so they can program our dreams, but also steal our dreams, it's not working. But more importantly, it's because there's a lot of rebels in the system that have been playing along the whole time who are actually against what the older degenerate, as they see it, establishment's doing. And so really it's a spectacular event that we're actually witnessing right now. So there's not just evil in the universe. There's not just the globalists. They're not all powerful. They convince us they're all powerful and then get us to acquiesce and subserve ourselves to them. But if we simply realize that they've built a human machine interface where billions of us are tied together the same thing, and now instead of letting it program us, we can actually force our will onto it. And they wanted to leave it open and make it look friendly and nice to get us to adopt it. But we now are used to it being more open and don't be evil. It was evil from the beginning, the way they designed it. But again, the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray. Humanity is, even from an unconscious level and a subconscious level through the group collective, the internet is just a synthetic shadow of the real human collective, subconscious collective. And so you're going to see it manifested in that. And they're going to try to use that to gauge, the group subconscious and the group collective, but it's not going to work because there's an overall human drive and human destiny to build and create and have a better future. And of course, we have like all this conquest, death, and destruction that's an aberration of that and part of that process. But they're not going to be able to stop human development if there's not a nuclear war or a bioweapon being released. And that's why crazies like Fauci and the communist Chinese and the globalists, transhumanists, they actually know that the giant population boom and all this technology is going to make us break free from them through the crisis it's actually going to create. So they want to create artificial crises, dynamite civilization, cause an artificial collapse back into neo-feudalism where only high-tech reservations operate outside of the rest of society, kind of a Hunger Games model, in a desperate attempt to slam the brakes on this metamorphosis that humanity is going through that they know is going to unseat them from power. So all they can do is blow the planet up in an attempt to stop this transformation. But people always say like, well, the aliens would stop it. Well, humanity, we are the aliens. We are the advanced intelligence. And yes, we are going to stop it.
So with the internet, it's almost as if they created a monster that they now are unable to control, essentially.
Absolutely. So you say it so well, quickly and easily. I don't go on a long 20-minute dot drop.
Well, no, you have a lot of historically relevant details that I think
people can look it up too. It doesn't sound real.
Well, I forgot about the was it the Google motto, "Don't be evil"?
Yes.
It's funny how these anti-human entities, whoever and whatever they are, everything is always inverted, right? It's like everything that they present to us as normal is abnormal. What they present to us as our safety is killing us.
That's because they're not very creative. We're the super creative creatures at an embryonic level. They're actually not creative. So that's why all they have to do is run what we said to them backwards or from an angle or sideways. Very well said.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the past few years of the pandemic, I mean, the whole charade was presented under the premise of protecting us and keeping us safe from this invisible enemy, right? Like terrorism was the invisible enemy. Drugs are another invisible.
Yeah, first it's the Soviets, then we become what we're fighting. Then it's the war on drugs, the CIA shipping them in. Then it's ISIS and Al-Qaeda, which the government's funding and controlling on record. And then now it's the right-wing extremists and, oh my gosh, the insurrection. And then they're now right back to Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and Hezbollah, which they literally gave the money to attack Israel. And then Netanyahu gets more power out of it.
Right.
Whether you're Hezbollah or Hamas or Iran or Netanyahu or NATO or Obama or Biden, they all get more power.
Right. It's like the David Icke problem reaction solution. It's
Hegelian dialectic.
It's crazy. It's like, how many times are we going to fall for this shit? I mean, that's the thing that I'm just astonished. And I guess we're falling for it less. We actually are.
Well, I mean, you said it. That's the paradigm shift, though, is that those are us that are not perfect, but more awake than others. We're like, this is ridiculous. But it's like a child watching a magic trick they're blown away by it until they finally learn the trick. And then it's like, oh, now I see it. And we can all remember back when we didn't know the tricks. I mean, I know all about politics and the world and the enemy's tricks. I still don't know how to stop drinking too much, eating like a pig, and, not taking care of myself. So, I mean, all of us have different gifts, but yeah.
How are you doing with the drinking? I've seen you on some podcasts, pretty lit, and then I've heard you at different times go, I've quit drinking or taken a break or something like that. I mean, I don't know how you could take on what you're taking on and not have some outlet. I don't. I've been sober a long time, but
you look great. But yeah, I was never really into drugs or alcohol. I mean, I would when I was 25 or 30, I'd drink 2 beers a month, and then I'll say it. It's not like I'm a victim or something, but in the last 15 years or so, just knowing all this stuff, I became I wouldn't say a raging alcoholic, but there are times I would say I'm an alcoholic to a certain extent. I mean, I can go 4 or 5 months not drinking and I'll lose 30 pounds, look great, and I'll go right back on it. But I'm not like I was 5, 6 years ago. There was a time where I was drinking too much. But the thing is, now I've gotten older and stuff, so it just doesn't have the same effect. So I'm a pretty moderate drinker now. It just I was just using the allegory of, or the example that I'm not up here on some high horse, and that's what's so frustrating. Everybody's seen those hidden pictures, where you look at the picture on the wall, it's a bunch of green dots, red dots, whatever, orange dots, black dots, and you can't tell what's there until you finally move and see it. And it's a octopus, or it's a wolf's head, or it's a lion, or it's a dog. And you're like, how did I not see that? And that's all. I'm not trying to get people to see what I see or believe what I see. Here's my biggest frustration. There are hundreds of different religious organizations and thousands of political movements and all of this. And a lot of them have some truths or some angle that they're saying is right. But a lot of it's also dogma to control people. This is not dogma. BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard control 88% of the world's wealth. They control almost every major corporation. They're telling people what to do. They admit they're doing it. And it's anti-human and it's destructive. And they pose as liberals while they're financing all these wars and collapsing third world populations and flooding the West and doing all this bad stuff. And what they write and say they're going to do, they do. And so they're in charge. And so I read stuff they wrote in the 50s, the globalists, that they got done by the 70s. And I read stuff they wrote in the 70s, they got done by the 90s. And almost everything they said in the 90s, they got done by now. And man, the next phase is hell on earth. And so this is not my opinion. I didn't get this out of a crystal ball. The New World Order is coming, and it's already here. And people better decide whether you want to be depopulated, you want to be poisoned, you want to eat bugs, you want to be erased because you're an aberration, and the elite have, quote, stolen the planet, and it belongs to them, survival of the fittest. Because as bad as the general public is, and as bad as I am, I've studied the New World Order, the ruling class. They are the most degenerate, selfish, hateful, satanic people ever. So if anybody needs to go, and if anybody's overpopulating, their carbon footprint's 10,000 times the size of some average person in Central Africa, then they need to go. I would respect Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and all them when they're always saying there's too many people, if they would then euthanize themselves. I'm not calling for violence. I'm not calling for violence.
I understand.
I'm not saying kill them. I'm saying, dude, show me. Like the Buddhist monk was probably a great person in Vietnam, tired of seeing millions getting killed, and said, I'm going to be anti-war. I'm going to pour a can of gasoline on myself and light myself on fire as a message to end this war, and that helped end it. I'm not saying we should self-immolate. I'm just saying, hey, all you big globalists, you greedy, selfish people that see these masses of folks and see all the problems and think, let's just get rid of people, that'll end the problem. Well, then they need to go first. They need to walk the plank first.
Well, there's an interesting thing that I've observed about, for lack of a better term, the ruling class. People call them the elites, but I think they're actually inferior. So I don't use that term, pseudo-elites maybe. The controllers, the 1%, right? Not only are they degenerates, but they're predominantly just super weak. They're just like, when I look at a Fauci or a Klaus Schwab or a Bill Gates, it's like Revenge of the Nerds. They're not strong people. And I wonder if perhaps because they've not identified or embodied their own strength as a man or as a woman, that perhaps that's where their desire to control others comes from. You know,
that's exactly where it comes from.
When I look at someone who's a strong, independent, sovereign person, the last thing they want to do is control anyone else at all.
Well, they're projecting their strength on other people. Exactly. And then Bill Gates, his dad was, a big eugenicist, depopulationist, all of them, as you know. Klaus Schwab's father, grandfather, big Nazis, third largest weapons producer for Hitler. I mean, it's not that Klaus Schwab is trying to look like Dr. Evil or Blofeld from James Bond. That's where they got the Blofelds. I mean, that's so this is art imitating life, not life imitating art. And so they're imitating what's really going on. And you hit the nail on the head right there, that they're cancer. So if cancer cells in the body had a consciousness, which they not a thinking conscious, but they did, they would say, I'm dominant. I'm totally in charge. I can take everything I want, until they kill the host. And so exactly, a Stalin, a Lenin, a Mao, an Adolf Hitler, a Pol Pot, a Xi Jinping, a Barack Obama, a Bill Gates, they are cancer. And so they get together in little metastasized cancer clusters, and they don't even realize how arrogant they sound. Like, I saw a big Davos group meeting last week where it was about, well, the general public won't be allowed to travel outside their 15-minute city. They're now officially saying it.
I saw that, yeah.
But the elites, we will be able to fly around the world still, but you'll be able to do it via VR. They're literally building the prison for us, and they're so disconnected that they don't even know how that sounds to people.
Something I struggle with, and maybe you've had a similar internal battle or seeking to come to an understanding, and I'll try to make sense of this question.
I'm listening.
I've had some experiences in my life, deeply spiritual experiences, and I know you've had your talks about DMT and the dangers of the underworld and things like that. But that aside, I've had some really profound experiences using plant medicines and psychedelics, with much intentionality, not for fun, and no offense to people that do it for fun, but they've been spiritual quests for me. And on numerous occasions, I've seen and understood that consciousness or God, because there's only one thing ultimately in the universe, right? If you zoom way out to source point, there's one thing, it's consciousness, that in order for it to experience itself in all the ways that it manifests itself in this thing that we experience as duality. And it's difficult to articulate, so just try to bear with me. What I've seen in those situations is that these characters that we're talking about are an aspect of God that God has allowed to happen so that it can experience itself infinitely. And where I'm getting with this is,
it's an aspect of ourselves.
Yeah, I find myself battling with hating these people when I think on a higher level, I can find an aspect of myself that feels actually sorry for them and empathy for them because they've been seduced by evil. And that the whole game of good and evil, and I consider myself a good person, consider you a good person, people that are fighting for humanity, I consider to be, however flawed some of us might be, I consider us on the side of good, and then I look at the people we're talking about on the side of bad. But if I zoom way out, it's kind of all God creating this playground or an earth school for us where we have choices based on our free will. And then rather than hating a war criminal, I actually kind of feel sorry for them that they've been seduced by evil and that they're so out of touch with their power and their connection to God that they've chosen through their free will to divorce themselves from God and have kind of chosen the dark side. I mean, it's very like Star Wars, Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker kind of thing, right? And so where I hit up against that is I don't think hate is productive in my heart because it poisons me. It's like I'm drinking my own poison. Yet I also have a very strong desire to stop these people that have adopted evil and that harm others. And so it's almost like, I don't know, say I'm on a hike with my kid. I don't have kids yet, but I can imagine what it would feel like. And a bear is coming to attack my family. I'll stop the bear if I can and kill the bear, but it's not because I hate the bear. It's because I love my family.
Exactly. You don't fight because you hate what's in front of you. It's because you love what's behind you.
Thank you. Okay, so that's, I don't know if there's a question in there.
No, it's beautiful. I think you just said the secret of the universe.
I mean, how do you see the duality? Because the way I see it is,
notice I just said you just said the secret of the universe. We have free will. We're conscious beings that can literally interface with infinity. And from my perspective, in my view, and I know it's true, you just said the secret of the universe. That wasn't a throwaway line. I didn't just say that because you're a nice guy. I don't want you to feel good. What you just said, and understanding that, is the study of 1,000 lifetimes. You just said everything right there. And then once you know that, you know everything. What you just said is the answer to everything. It's from my understanding of it, I don't read this in books. I've had these experiences, and I'm not against ayahuasca or any of that. I'm actually scared of it because I already have those experiences every time I go to sleep. I dream from the time I go to sleep to the time I wake up. And I've had a lot of dreams come true. I see all the same stuff people describe with ayahuasca in my dreams. And so I'm like, well, whatever's going on in my head, I had head injuries and stuff when I was younger. It kind of shifts me a little bit. I think that, kind of cut the conch of the head, the thing happens. But I almost don't want to tune the channel I'm on because I'm on the right channel. I'm glad people are over there finding the channel. They should take it really serious because it's dangerous. But anything powerful is dangerous. So what you said is that's it. Infinite consciousness, infinite reality, infinite will. But there is, from my understanding, an overdriving force that actually built this. And so whereas we see this as infinite, it is infinite, but there is infinite systems upon infinite, and there's other consciousnesses with infinite things going on. And then we're kind of in this bubble of this infinite thing. And so we are beings, whether we just arrived or been here before, that are birthed with consciousness, or you could say always existed. But the point is that we have infinite consciousness and infinite ability to absorb consciousness. And so when you look at somebody like Bill Gates or Klaus Schwab, you can physically see it. You can watch their mannerisms. You can see how infantile they are, how sophomoric they are. And then you see their writings and what they do and the horrible things they do and how unhappy they are, how unhappy their families are. The archetypal example will be Luciferian energy, where they want to create their own universe, their own thing, breakaway, quote, from God, the infinite. And the thing we see is when they do that, they say, well, it's not allowed to just control things, and there's something bigger than this. I'm going to do what I want. Well, then how come every time it's enslave people and control people? And because people want to go with the source that's already the real thing. That's us. We're already part of it. And so they are a form of cancer that's always trying to break away. We've already been given infinite free will. But there is going to be, like water going downhill and over a waterfall of the ocean, a path to that. And if you want to swim upstream and fight that all day long, that is who these people are. And we're meant to go off the planet and go interdimensional and just at our third dimensional level do unlimited stuff. We're going to green galaxies upon galaxies. And by the time it's so obvious. We all ingrained know this because the universe is like a figure eight or a loop. We're already into the future, we're into the past, we're now. It's all here. We already know what we're going to do in the future. We already know what we did in the past because there is no past and future. We are divine creatures. And these people cannot understand that. And they think, I've got to learn how to clone my body. I've got to learn how to live forever. I've got to prop up Xi Jinping because they'll let us have human-animal clone farms and they'll give us a life extension. And yeah, maybe they'll have some blob of flesh that lives 5,000 years. That's not going to be the original them. It's a fraud. There is no way to clone or copy the spirit. There's no way to have 100 bodies and claim that you transmitted memories into it. Maybe the AI will fool the voice print. Maybe it'll fool your family, but it's not you, because we really are. It's like footprints in the sand. Our third dimensional manifestation is the lowest level of the manifestation of what we are. And all the ancients knew that. Every culture knew that. The enemy knows that. And that's why I know that it is a force that is against humans, that is trying to program us so that we don't take the next steps. Because in an infinite universe, there have been a lot of creatures and a lot of entities that have decided to go against us, and they've built a lot of horrible stuff. And they're trying to seduce us and conscript us to join them. And I'll use the cheesy analogies. I hadn't seen it since I was a little kid, and I came back across it online and watched some of it. Then I read the synopsis, but it's like Poltergeist. You've got this religious satanic leader who poses as a Christian. He tricks a bunch of people to go out in the Nevada desert into a cave to basically die with him because he wants to like keep their souls around him. He's figured out a way not to go to hell, kill these good people around him and somehow bind their spirits to him so that he can have his own little heaven. And then the whole thing is about they actually want out and them getting out and getting away. And that's really, they know this. The establishment knows this. So why would you then want to recreate the plot from Poltergeist in the real world?
Well, they know it because historically they're obsessed with occultism.
Yes.
Their own sort of warped perspective of spirituality. It's not that these people aren't spiritual. It's just that they have it seems to be a parasitic approach to life.
They just say, I want total power. And if you bend the rules, you can distort things and in this dimension get more power.
But if you are, and I know this from my own experience, the more aligned I am with God, the more that I am surrendering to God's will. The paradox of that is that the more personal power I have and the less weak I feel, and therefore I don't need to form a counterfeit power within myself by controlling or dominating or harming other people.
But that takes coming of age. And that's why they're targeting the youth with chemicals and toxic culture, because the people coming of age is going to accelerate. You can feel the consciousness. Everybody knows it. And that's why they're trying to carpet bomb the children before this ascension happens.
Do you see the earth realm that you're in? You mentioned the different dimensions, right? And I think most of us know there's infinite dimensions beyond our imagination. Do you see this planet Earth as a sort of purgatorial training ground where we incarnate, given free will and given the opportunities to either succumb to evil and separate from our creator or ascend to higher levels of consciousness to rejoin the creator? You know what I'm saying?
And when you say that, you know it's true because your cells know it. Everybody knows that. Yes, that's what it is. And we can debate how it works or what goes on in it, but that's it. And then there are other people that are like, we're not going to leave this. I'm a billionaire. I run everything here. I can do it. I got jumbo jets. We know we're not leaving. And we're going to figure out a metaverse to trick your spirits to sign on and stay here because we have free will. We can do that. And so that's it. I would see it as a beautiful purgatory and as a test. And you can argue whether our memories get wiped, we get sent back as some type of training or some type of I've seen stuff in my dreams that is indescribable. It's not in Hollywood. It's not in books. It's not in culture. It's all, and then the dream will say, by the way, this is going to happen today. This is how real this is. And it's just like, the cheesy archetype of the watchers, but it's like angels, but you don't even see them. They're just these watchers and they're showing you all this stuff. And then they'll say, all right, you're going to wake up and you're going to get up and go take a piss and look at the clock in the kitchen. And it's going to be 4:27 exactly. And I wake up. And I got to do this. When you try it, though, it's like observing. It won't work. Write down 4:27, walk out, it's 4:27. It's like, yeah, you're being told this is real. This is not a game. This is not. And of course, most dreams, your brain wargaming things and figuring things out. You know the different dreams, but the dreams that are like ecstasy or total completion or whoa, what is this place? Like, crystal palaces and Hawaii times a trillion, and you're just like, what the, it's like, I don't want to leave, please. It's just perfect, total completion. It's not even ecstasy. It's just total timelessness. And it's like, no, you've already been here, so you got work to do. And it's like, oh, I've already been here. See, and it's like, yeah, I'm home. And it's like, yeah, but then look at this, and it's like all these headstones, but it's more like these seeds, these coffins of all the consciousnesses that created their own universe, their own thing, and broke away from the wellhead. And they're like, we want it to work. Go look into anything you want. And I can go dive into any of these civilizations or groups or individuals. And it's just like old men with sand in the dark or just horrible destruction. It's like, yeah, God's even like, if you can go create something that works like this, go ahead and go do it. And it doesn't exist. Not from what I've seen. And so, that's the type of visions I have.
Well, I can see why you don't need to drink ayahuasca. That's the kind of shit that happens.
Yeah.
If you have that on the natch, you can gain that.
I think everybody does. I just don't think they remember it.
Yeah.
I think everybody does. It's just,
there's another point to this kind of purgatorial duality perspective of Earth that I've played with a bit. And I'm someone who sometimes is tempted into thinking the world needs to change. We shouldn't have these evil players. It should be the utopian Hawaii times a million that you described, the crystal cities. Like, why aren't we there? And it seems to be that if you look at an incarnation or our life as a human being as the ultimate opportunity to ascend to higher levels of consciousness, there needs to be lower levels of consciousness and the existence of evil here so that there's contrast, right? So that there's grist for the mill. In other words, if my soul incarnated here and it was utopia and everyone was in pure unconditional Christ consciousness love, there kind of be nowhere to go, right? It's like sending a postgraduate to kindergarten. It's like, what am I even doing here? I already know all this, right? I mean, do you think that we kind of need something to push against so that there's contrast and we know the lower realms are there so that we can use our free will to move away from them?
I mean, I think that's it. But I just get the impressions from interfacing with the infinite that there are, you hear the term old soul or whatever, but there are new souls coming into the universe. Like God is releasing, imagine the ultimate construction. The ultimate thing is a conscious being that goes on forever or has the potential to. And that's free will. And then has the seed of the universe that Gandhi talked about that can just build anything. I mean, look, what we envision, we just do. We're powerful creatures. And so I think something, yes, I mean, it's more like if you're a rich kid and your dad gives you everything, you end up being a bum. I mean, I think we have to be given the potential to be evil and have to be put into a system that offers that so that we can choose. I don't think you can be put into nirvana and then say, oh, you're free will. And you're just like, oh, yeah, free will. I don't ever want to leave this.
Right.
And,
you know. Do you ever get visions or have an understanding of who you've been before?
I never really have. No. It's mainly like I've seen all sorts of potential destructions of the earth, other civilizations being destroyed. Higher levels of energy, cities of just spectacular energy and all the wavelengths and all the things that are going on. And I've seen also people that decide to put themselves in a spiritual prison, how they're in these prisons. And they're not just people. I've seen other species and things in prisons that they've constructed themselves because of their own shame or whatever reason. They build their own prison. And I think that's really the big message I got is, out of all the life in the universe is a simple term, so much of it decides to just say, I can't handle this infinite. I want to control everything. So they build just a little box that they can contain themselves in, and then they decide to wall themselves off. And I think the big message I've gotten is this third level, or we'll call it third dimension, this jumping off point, is people think there's just perfectness up above, the term above, it's not really, it's just different levels.
Over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Over there.
Is that it's not just peaches and cream too, that you go back to the ancient Greeks and then they talk about the gods of chaos before the gods. And it's not even like a devil and a devil and Christ or good God, bad God. It's more like chaos. And that there's some pretty wild stuff going on. And that's one of the things that I've been impressed with is that we're not just being put through this training at the same time to just go around and float around on a cloud and be in ecstasy forever.
Right.
Though that's a potential and a feeling I never felt except when I've been in those states that's indescribable. But that's one end of it, you could say. But that there is also a lot of like if we think we know what evil is, what humans do, and what goes on here, it's child's play compared to what's going on in the universe.
Well, this is one thing that helps me when I feel frustrated at the lack of justice for these perpetrators throughout history and ones that are still actively perpetrating harm on humanity. I look at these people and they seem to be untouchable. I mean, there's evidence upon evidence upon evidence, and there's no persecution, right, for the crimes that these people commit. And I'll find myself again, and this is, the lower part of myself that gets into that hate. I want them to be punished. I want to see them hanged, politically speaking.
I understand.
Right? But then I look at it, the universe and karma is taking care of that. I mean, can you imagine the hell that these pedophiles and these warmongers are not only what they're living in now, but what their souls thereafter are going to experience? I mean, I don't think of it in terms of a biblical heaven and hell, but I can only imagine the suffering that they're bringing upon themselves through their actions, through the cause and effect of.
Yeah, but that is what makes you actually feel sorry for them, because it's being cut off. I mean, they're going to be given their own private, here's your own universe. It's you alone in it. That's kind of what I get is the total loneliness. Kind of like Dante's ninth circle of hell is just frozen. And imagine you're just with, you're the king of this frozen landscape. Now you're here.
Right.
I mean, that's what, and I think that's really what it is. And so a primitive person, which is not primitive, but primitive times, envisioning and interfacing with this, thinks of like, this is horrible, this is frozen hell, or this is burning, this is torture, because you're totally cut off from the source.
Yeah. So
I think that's really what it is. And for whatever reason, they're cut off. I mean, you look at Bill Gates. He can't even help himself when they're on TV. They're like, the lockdown's going to go on for years and tens of millions are going to starve to death and it's going to be terrible. He goes, I know. He starts every time like he's having an orgasm, and you're just like, whoa, dude, what is wrong with this guy? And I don't understand it all. I just get the basic psychic imprint of what's going on, and then I try to primitively figure out what it means. But I'm not even sure, like, a lot of this lower level energy is like a robot. It's like a program. I'm not even sure Bill Gates is even a person. I'm saying he's like, like nuts and bolts, a robot. I mean, it's just, I don't even feel like he's even there.
Yeah. Well, I wonder sometimes, what is the origin of these people? Even they're almost like entities, these royal families, these bloodlines that then break off into these other groups and fool us to think they're on opposing sides. Like you mentioned, the Clintons and the Bushes, and they're all best buddies behind the scenes, but the media presents them as a choice for us, right? And that they're these opposing forces when really it's kind of they're all on the same team, and then humanity is on another team. And then some people will try to group them in. People think it's the Jesuits. I mean, there's a huge group of people that thinks that this is all, that's the main group is the Jesuits. Others think it's the Freemasons, and that it's a trickle down from
or the Jews,
the Knights Templar, right? It's like, who is actually above and behind all of the groups?
Here's,
see.
Obviously, I don't take the view of the mainline preachers of the Bible, but the Old Testament was very, very powerful if you actually interpret it, I think, with like a higher level of understanding, or at least we're late in the game, so we can really look back on with hindsight. But it says the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and hates us because we're made in the image of God, and is jealous of our potential. Well, look at how they want to dumb us down and control us, and they're threatened by the crowd. They're threatened by the individual. They're threatened by the innate humanity that is in the general public. And so they're trying to turn us evil, turn us twisted, so that we don't contend with them for the future. So it's out of fear, it's out of a want to control and dominate reality. Because if we can build and manifest what we want, well, you don't want a bunch of people that are powerful like that. If you already know that power is there, but you selfishly want it for yourself because you know best. And then through that selfishness, you then degenerate like the Ring of Power, to use a Tolkien or the Rings type analogy. Like no matter what you do, the ring can't be used for good. And so I don't think I know. As soon as you open yourself up to that evil, your degeneration begins very, very quickly. Because I was never a Satan worshiper. I never went and killed dogs or cats or anything like that. But I mean, I grew up, and we had to move down here when I was 16 because of all the troubles in the area. We lived in Dallas, richest area in Texas, and there was all these billionaires and people. And I was young and really good looking and was prideful and, just, I would say had a lot of, Luciferian energy, which is part of the process of being younger, pride, human energy, but the devil can manipulate that. He called that devil energy. And I mean, I got, recruited into the outer circle, not of your garden variety Luciferians, but like the real thing. And I think obviously they have their own psychic internet. So I guess, were picking up on what was going to happen with me. And I didn't think of it as pedophilic at the time because it really was. The girls were like 16 years old. I was like 12, 13. I was older than I, was. Looked like I was 16 when I was 12. And I went to puberty like I was 10. But I mean, I was like, dating the beauty queens. And then I was like 14 dating college girls. And I'd be like 15 and people take me to a party in Dallas. And they'd be like, the hottest, strippers in town come in, start having sex with me. But every time it was the same cult group. It was the same organization, the same thing. It happened like 6, 7, 8 times. And finally, it's like something out of a movie. And I haven't told the whole story before. It's crazy. But my dad's lawyer was one of the top lawyers in the area. He said, "Yeah, you got to get out of there. They're gonna kill your son." Because I'd confronted him. I said, "I'm not gonna be part of this." Twice I got, like when I'm 13, 14, oh, let's go to this bonfire. And it's someplace way out in the thing. And I'm there with 18-year-old beauty queen. And we pull in. He's like, "Come on, have fun." There's like torches and people. And "Come in, have a drink. Alex here." And it's literally people putting black hoods on. And there's like jets and helicopters back there. So I'm like, no, I'm walking back the road. And back then they didn't have cell phones. So I'm knocking on a farmhouse, calling my dad to come pick me up 30 miles away. So the stuff you see in movies about Hollywood, the elite, occultism, it's 100% real. And so...
Yeah, I've heard Eyes Wide Shut is more of a documentary.
It's a documentary. And that's exactly, they rope a new member in, they kill a prostitute at the event. And that's, let's not say anything, she died. And then it's you're off the races. And
right, because the blackmail is such a huge part of the control, right? Where they take someone in from the fringes of goodness, right? And kind of seduce them with sex and drugs and depravity of all sorts, and then sort of enroll them in criminal activity and then hold that over their head. And
it's 100% real.
And now you're kind of in.
And some of the people I knew that got sucked into was always the best looking, coolest people. Once I moved out of there, like, oh, where are those guys? Oh, one was out at a bonfire, died in a motorcycle accident. Another one was out hunting in the woods, and he hung himself. And then they were killing these people. So it's human sacrifice. So yeah, it's 100% real. And my life's been crazy. Everybody's lives are crazy, but it's like it just got weirder and weirder. And thank God I moved to Austin. There's a little bit of new agey stuff and all that, but it's not. It's that's kind of a modern take on what's already ancient. I didn't really pick up a big satanic vibe here, but Dallas, the big Christian headquarters has got it big time. And so I think I had a leg up on understanding all this because I almost got sucked into the really serious occult.
Well, you're quite the history buff, and I think that's something I've always found interesting about your message is, the classic, I love this, by the way, guys, document cam, and then your guys will fuck up and they don't show it and you get all pissed off.
A lot of times I'm on another show and I've got crew and for 30 minutes I don't say it. I go, "Hey guys, have the overhead shot." I go the shot. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I wish we had an overhead shot to do that. But anyway, to my point, and David Icke too, who I, got into around 9/11 time too, used to go see his lectures and, going through all the slides, he's like, this is historical fact, right? And the books that you've read and the things that you've studied over the years, there are very few things that you can't back up. And I think, again, that's one of the things that terrifies the establishment is you're not just coming up with this shit off the top of your head, which is why some people view you as prophetic and you always humbly say, I can't see the future. I'm just like, I've read the books, I've read their papers. But going back into the history, I could have a totally fantastic and unrealistic version of what the world used to be like, but say pre-agriculture, right? When we had the need for a military, a police state, royalty, kings, queens, when we started owning land and livestock, it seems like that's when shit kind of went haywire. Before that, I'm sure there were roving, hunter-gatherer tribes that would be at war sometimes, and human sacrifice, and probably all kinds of weird shit going on. But in terms of the power structure, this superimposed artificial matrix grid that we now call human civilization, the people at the helm of control, I'm just so curious as what are their origins? Did this develop out of ancient Sumeria, or is it Babylonian? Where did these groups kind of first take hold of civilization?
Again, this is all speculation, but I've done a lot of research, and then also go off my instincts and my gut. And really, that's just your subconscious and unconscious. It's way more powerful saying this is what I think it is. Like a woman's intuition, it's not intuition, it's their subconscious and unconscious. It's powerful, and it's telling them this is what I think it is. And so if you read what Plato wrote, 2,000, whatever it was, 300 years ago or whatever it was, he talked about Atlantis being out in the Atlantic Ocean, and they had flying machines, and they had automatons, and they're named for a machine, and that it blew up. And then they've got jade that's only in central China, in central South America, in the Aztec, Mayan, Toltec statues. And they can test it. It's from there. And so we know the cultures were actually all over the world earlier. And now that they've got satellite shots of the Earth, they actually see giant craters everywhere. Remember when Shoemaker Levy hit one of the gas giants, that big comet, decades ago? And they had to reassess and say, no, we actually believe comets and asteroids hit not every 10 million years or 5 million years. We think they're hitting every 100,000, 20,000 years. And so I think a lot of civilization's been destroyed. And I don't think technology was as distributed as it is now. But I do believe that Atlantis was real, because they've dug up a bunch of places that Plato said existed where he said they existed, and they thought, oh, that's made up, and they found it. And of course, he was going off oral histories and things, so it wasn't all exact, but he said it was real. He's kind of the founder of modern culture and things today here in the West, and eugenics as well. So the globalists actually pretty much follow his ideas, the allegory of the cave and all the rest of it. But I think there really has been advanced civilization before. And I think the Sumerians and people, if you actually read their writings, that's what they tell you. And if you check their writings with a lot of the other ancient writings around the world, they basically say the same thing. And so they even tell you that in movies like Prometheus, where, they send the priest down who sacrifices himself to give birth to a new planet. And I forget the term they use for it, transpermia, or it's one of those, meaning life from outside Earth created a life from here on Earth. And so there's really none of the globalists, none of the big academics now are actually atheists anymore. None of them ever really believe that. They believe off-world things created us. And they obviously know that you didn't have some salts in the ocean that just came together and made a single-cell organism, when the single-cell organism has billions of parts. I mean, it's preposterous. And then it goes, oh, where did that come from? So, the whole interpretation of men of the first book of the Bible, Genesis, is ridiculous. Not even what the Bible actually says, what they say it is, 6,000 years and all this stuff. That's preposterous. The mainline thing of Darwin, that, and then a fish came out and became, just all of that is basically ridiculous. What we know now is evolution is completely true. And depending on the solar radiation and radiation from space that's causing our DNA to mutate, and depending on the environment, that there are giant jumps in development. And so that's what goes on this planet. And that's why we see the bear and the dog and, the cat and, we see the birds and all these shapes repeated, even if it's different species of an octopus versus a squid, or all these shapes are just a manifestation of the energy in the higher dimensions bleeding in and pushing into this dimension that is basically just like dirt or a womb. And that's what the third dimension is. It's like a womb for things that are going to be born, a cornucopia. So this is literally just a huge cauldron, really. And so that's what we are. And so obviously there's cats Look at that image, that archetype, that perfection. It's everywhere. It's all over that design, our designs, all over the place. You see a dolphin or a killer whale all over the place. You see a bear all over the place. You see a spider everywhere. You see a fish everywhere. All these species of fish everywhere. Just different. It's an imprint. It was designed. And then it's a life form that continues to grow and change with its environment, but it was originally turned loose.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
technology.
I find the evolution drawings where it'll show like a chimpanzee and then it gets bigger and bigger through all the different versions of people until it gets to modern man. I'm like, where are all the guys in between? They're all missing, right? I mean, it's so funny that people think that we weren't just created and put here by the creator. I find that really funny. All the mental gymnastics that people go through.
Because they don't want us to know that that's out there, because then they're not on top in their big marble buildings. Because Bill Gates and them want to be God and they want to learn all the technology and have us bow to them. And then we basically develop and give them the technology, and they basically are self-appointed gods.
Who's in the shadows above the people that we see outward facing? I get the sense if there's, maybe to estimate 10,000 people controlling the other 8 billion of us. I mean, are they throwing these public figures out as sort of sacrificial lambs or as front people, but the ones that are really in charge, we don't even know the names of?
Well, we know that, and I could do an hour-long diatribe on that. That's why I don't mean to be obnoxious or talk fast. I want to give people knowledge to back everything up, and it's just frustrating because there's, everything you're saying is dead on. You could do the same thing. Take SPARS 2023, 2025, 2028. That is a government, UN, Rockefeller, John Hopkins war game put out a few years before they released COVID. And it shows the tweets that are going to be put out. It's like a huge document. And all you do is change the acronyms for the date and move 2025 to 2020 to 2023. So 2025 to 2028 is moved to 2020 to 2023. And they're carrying around their manual for the attack. So if anybody asks them, what's that? Oh, it's just a manual for a war game, but it's the real scenario they're running, okay? And there's Operation Lockstep and a bunch of others, Rockefeller Foundation. And in that, they describe by year 3, we'll start making politicians and big pharma heads resign when people find out that the vaccine is giving them autoimmune disorders, heart attacks, and infertility. And it's all, and General Flynn saw it, was blown away by my breakdown of it. It's like a 3-hour breakdown on band.video. It's just Alex Jones, SPARS report. And we show it, and it shows the dates, and it shows the tweets later, and it's the same tweet. They just moved the name around, and it's all battle plan. They did exactly as an attack plan. But again, if they get caught or some other group sees it, that's compartmentalized, they go, oh, it's just a drill.
Do these people really have the power that we attribute to them? The people
they have
that we've
the
been
power
talking
to
about?
put,
or are there puppet masters behind them?
Well, that's what I meant to get to, is that it describes burning the prime ministers and presidents once they get caught. They even war gamed it's going to come out. And then they're going to use that to discredit our governments further. So we think our governments are broken, so they'll collapse. And then the WEF can come in with corporate rulership, which is their next plan.
Right, and the UN.
So that's how sick this is. But yeah, what was the first part of your question?
Well, I think that we are, what I intuit is that we're misled to both fear and demonize the people we're talking about.
Yeah, 100%.
Klaus Schwabs.
100%.
That they're not actually the ones. I mean, we know, for example, the installed figurehead president of the United States currently is not making any decisions. The guy can't even.
Super obvious.
He can't even walk across the stage. So
he's like Fetterman.
So and then people say, oh, well, Obama is the shadow president. No, I don't believe that. I believe there's people above all of them that we don't even know the names of publicly that are actually the decision makers and the shot callers behind the scenes. Is there any truth to that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you can read Bloomberg articles from 10 years ago out of Davos where they say, we want to get rid of elected officials, but before we do that, we're going to discredit them so it all falls apart. So that's what I was trying to get at in my own weird roundabout way. That's how my brain works. The SPARS document is a war game for what they did years before. So they have a battle plan, but if they get caught, they can just say, oh, it's just a drill. But in it, it's how they're going to discredit their puppets so they get the blame and not them.
Got
So
it.
100%. But above that, everybody knows you go to a pep rally in high school, you feel the energy. Or you go to a certain place like the Roman Coliseum and has a bad vibe in it. Everybody knows good vibes, bad vibes. Like your house has got a great vibe, great people. Some of these have really bad vibes. And so they really are dialed in, from my research, into an energy source and into like a transmission. And so it's kind of like you're driving through a national park and it says, tune to this channel for park information. People learn to tune to the Black Magic channel, and then they're kind of into the same sheet of music, the same symphony. And so you can call these things whatever you want. I know what they look like. That's what they want us to think they look like. Why do they look like something from, our primitive times that has horns and teeth to scare us or whatever? I don't think that's what they even look like. I mean, call it aliens, whatever you want. The Bible says there's God that made everything, and then there's breakaway groups that want to build their own system. And then I see our own elites trying to break away from the normal human order and claiming they're God and saying we're taking control of human evolution and you have no rights and you have no soul and you have no free will, but we do, and we're very important. So, I know from covering Skull and Bones and talking to people that were members off record and on record, and I know from infiltrating Bohemian Grove, and I know from studying the occult, and I know from reading their writings that they are dialing in to a Luciferian, or what you could call destructive, dark, satanic spirit or energetic transmission that inspires them. And so it's not human. These people are being programmed. They've turned their will over to it. And I've been at Bohemian Grove, and I thought it was a joke. I don't know if that's the whole story.
No, that documentary was one of the first sort of counterculture, subversive, truther films that I ever saw. Were you scared shitless going in there?
Well, that's a long story, but just
okay.
At the first of it, then maybe I have to take a quick break and come right back, is I had actually been around occultists. And it was because beautiful women were and were, wanting to have sex with me. And so I was like, I was promiscuous. Sure, I'll do it. And then boom, it's the occult again. Wow, I'm so lucky. And because the vibe was so bad. But because let me tell you something. It's one thing to be around, gorgeous young women. It's another thing when you're in a deal and it's like old rich men and they look like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. All right. And I don't know if you've ever been around real Satanists.
I don't, not to my knowledge. I've been to some dark places, but
it's not good.
Not like that.
It's not good. And you're like, whoa, because it's a thing you're passing. And the thing is, I was able to resonate with that energy. And I was able to sit there and, basically allow myself to be influenced, never fully possessed. But that's what, and that was the thing, was come into the circle, come into the energy, come into this thing. And that's really what it is. And so they're getting a not of this world, not of this dimension energy. And it's real. And so they have literally dialed in and turned themselves over to the dark side. And then the first thing it tells you is, I want you to commit crimes against the universe, against God. I want you to do horrible things because I'll give you the secrets, but you've got to kill that other transmission. You've got to decide to fully tune over here. And once you do these bad things, it blows the transistors in your spirit or your brain, whatever it is, where you can't dial back. So it's wanting you to blow up these circuits.
Yeah, because within those circuits exists your empathy.
Yes.
And I think this is the challenge.
So they're doing evil things to get closer to the source.
Yeah. This is the challenge I think people have that are inherently good people, and the cognitive dissonance that prevents them from acknowledging what we're facing right now and have been for a very long time.
We're facing people that want to be as evil as they can be.
Right. Because if you're not evil, you can't put yourself in the mind or consciousness of someone who is evil, because you have access to love and empathy and compassion, and you're connected to God in your own unique way. It's like, if you're a loving, kind person, try to put yourself in the mind of a Jeffrey Dahmer and imagine what motivates him and how he's deriving pleasure from the harm that he's causing, right? It's like you just can't fathom that. But if you have a politician, let's say, or a quote unquote world leader who puts on a suit and is a great actor, like an Obama, for example, just made by Hollywood, kind of likable personality, funny, charismatic, you can't see behind the mask because you don't have a mask, because you're a real human being with a real heart and real love. Right. And so
I agree, yeah.
This is part of the denial system, I think, that keeps the public dumbed down.
And you project your own goodness onto them.
Yeah, you can't imagine that someone is that evil. And especially you can't imagine that someone is that evil has been placed in a position of influence and power. And I think that's a big blind spot we have.
Absolutely.
As kind, caring people. We literally can't imagine it because we don't have those kind of thoughts.
I agree. And once they do this evil stuff, that's what it is. It's just going against the grain. And people say, oh, there is no good and evil beyond good and evil. No, there's a little kid playing in their front yard, picking daisies, and you walk over with a ball-peen hammer and beat their brains out. That's not nice. I mean, you're not even like a cat that's hungry that grabs a kid and eats them. Because to them, that's hunting. It wants to eat. No, you're doing it just to be mean and destroy some innocent person's future. And to them, that's power to them. Like, I just ruined somebody's destiny. I just stole their future. I did it for me. It's all about this selfishness.
Because they're psychopaths. And if you're not a psychopath, you can't understand the mind of a psychopath.
Exactly. Jeffrey Dahmer wanted to lure young gay men to his house, drug them, inject bleach boat cleaner in their brains to try to make a zombie for his enjoyment. I mean, and then chopped up bodies in drums and in refrigerators. Like, that sounds like the most nightmarish hell ever. But to him, that was wonderful because he was in charge. It was his own little universe.
Tell me about Bohemian Grove. When I watched that documentary, I mean, I'm scared for you going in there. I'm like, if they catch this guy, he's a goner.
Well, I want to be clear. That was 23 years ago, and I didn't exaggerate what was going on, but I didn't hit the nail on the head about the place or what it is. While I was there, I saw Clint Eastwood for a second. I saw Danny Glover. Just for a second, you're like, well, you can't run up and say something, you're going to get caught. And I saw the ritual. Overall, it was set up by Mark Twain, like 150 years ago. And it was a big party place for guys to go have fun. And then by about 1900, the Republican Party took it over, and Taft and other presidents would go there once there was a railroad across the country that was quick. And it is a place to compromise Republicans. They have the female prostitutes in town, just like a mile away. It's in the middle of this big 2,700 acre river.
Yeah, that's where I'm from, is Sonoma County.
What do you know all about it?
Well, I don't know that much about
it. Right on the Russian River.
Yeah, I used to swim in that river as a kid. I mean, it's a beautiful area.
Very nice.
Unbeknownst to me, that place was in existence and God knows what. So
there's a lot of levels to it.
Okay, so are you saying it's not as sensational or demonic as you might have believed, or that many people have believed before?
The way I covered it was an exaggeration.
Okay,
because I didn't understand it. It's actually way darker once you actually understand it.
Okay,
and I thought, this is 23 years later. I can understand what it is now, and have read more books about it. And it wasn't popular, even really known. Once I snuck in and got all that, then they have internal annals put out every few years. All this literature, when the men die, their wives and family have sold it. So we have a great deal of the lore of it now. And it is an offshoot of Skull and Bones, which is a Germanic death cult. And German.
Who has a headquarters at Yale, right?
Well, that's one of the U.S. spinoffs. But Helmut Schmidt, in his book, Men in Power's Political Retrospective, he was a German chancellor a long time ago. He wrote about, we have our own groves in Europe where we do our own druidic rituals. But this one is my favorite, and they do the best job there. So they are doing a druidic ritual, but that's only for 15 days when they meet. That's only a small part of what goes on there. The real stuff is Star Wars deals and nuclear weapons and, buying and selling. But they do a Faustian ritual that takes from Faust, Goethe, I guess, and it takes from the Babylonians, the Egyptians. It takes from Tyre. It takes from the folks in Nineveh, the whole, I guess it's Assyrian Empire, and they mix it all into a 2-hour ritual where they bring in a bound body of a child, an effigy, on a horse-bound hearse. And I got this on tape, video, a little hidden camera right here. And they then do the mock human sacrifice and put all of their sins for the next year onto this child. And the men, when they're watching it across this little pond or small lake, it's about 100 yards long, but they're it's up towards the north of it. There's the big idol.
It's kind of an amphitheater, sort of.
Absolutely. Right? It's like there's a big owl up here, or bull. It has two different meanings, and it's like on 13 steps, and then there's a pond, and bats are flying around. It's all midsummer's night and everything, and then, but you look around in the light of the torches, and the rich men that are sitting there watching it are have satanic looks on their faces. I mean, I don't want to even try to sit there and do it. But it looks like Jack Nicholson. I mean, it's the face they make. It's the face you look at when somebody's carving you up or something. It's a this kind of thing, but more intense. And I'm not gonna try to go there. And you're seeing a bunch of old men going like this, and you're just like, whoa. But then you also look around. Well, these guys are doing it, but some of these other people there, because the people can bring, more senior members can bring a guest. Maybe a quarter of the people are guests there. And you'll see some other person kind of like this, but then you're like, most of them are in religious rapture. And they do other rituals there, other things go on there, and they mainly just compromise people. Because for a Republican, having gay sex is a big deal. And it's like an initiation. It's not like, they catch you and tape you having gay sex. Like they have over 100 clubs there. One's the big chalet that's up on a mountaintop, and Prince Charles and Henry Kissinger, it's all hierarchical, and presidents, they stay in the chalet up on the mountaintop. And they have over 100 other camps, and they're all like log cabins, and some are actually just tents, down to the lowest level, and it's wherever you're at, you go to that camp. And then, again, if you want female prostitutes, you go into town, and they're just everywhere. There's just hundreds of private jets landing, or when I say hundreds, there'll be 30 or 40 jets at one time out there. And then inside the club, I was only inside about 5 hours. And back then I was, you looked at video of it, I was a lot better looking back then. I was about 50 pounds lighter and everything. And I was getting whistled at, I was pinching my ass. And I had to then finally just hide under one of the cabins until it got dark. And I thought, okay, let's see if they really do a ritual. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting there, because I was pretty close to the idol. It's a huge place, but I'm kind of up the hill from it. I hear dun 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 dun. You're welcome to play it if you want. It's called Dark Savers inside Bohemian Grove. You guys can grab it and put it in there. And they've got a full symphony playing Hall of the Mountain King. So I come crawling out and then go down and get a place I stand up on the root of a redwood, so I get above the guys, because I got it in a fanny pack. I'm trying to get above them to get footage, and sure as hell, they had the ritual. And but then I'm like, it's all satanic and everything. I mean, this is like pre-Christian, pre-Solomon stuff. This isn't even, to them, it's using dark energy to put something onto a child, and who knows what else goes on there. I was only in there 5 hours, so.
When you talk about the skull and bones and, there's other secret societies, and I don't know if this is true, but I remember hearing at some point that all but, 3 U.S. presidents have been Freemasons. And now you see people in these positions of power.
I think it's way more than 3.
Is it? Are the Freemasons really one of the groups in charge? Are the Jesuits in charge? Are they all together? Is it one big group? What's your perspective?
Well, you asked a question earlier. People ask what group is dominant.
Yeah.
And it's all in history to know. So I would have to say that the Masons are the most powerful, influential group in the world. But does that mean it's the Blue Lodge? Does that mean it's the Orient Lodge? None of that. What you think of, like you said, Masons today are Rotary clubs raising money for orphan children in their town.
My granddad was a Freemason.
George Washington was.
And he was a good guy.
Well, so was my great-grandfather and all that stuff. So I want to be clear. The Masonic system is dominant on the planet today. but that's not Masons. So just because people say there's something, it's like Jews of the Old Testament are not then, Jews of the Babylonian captivity and what is Ukraine today, okay, which was, the Khazarian Empire or whatever. It's two different things.
Is this because of the compartmentalization and the pyramidal structure of power? Where
when I say absolutely,
the lower levels don't know what's happening. Like my granddad, he wasn't a Satanist. He didn't try to control people. He wasn't a pedophile. He's a regular guy.
Well, this question is one of the most important, and it's super simple, but also really complex. So it's all in history. So if you go back to ancient Egypt, or you go back to ancient Samaria that you mentioned, let's go back 6,000, 5,000 years ago, or China 5,000 years ago. Whether you were in China or whether you were in Samaria or whether you were in Babylon or whether you were in Egypt or whether you were in ancient Greece, they didn't send the average person to college, and they didn't have college. So when I say what we think of as masonry is the dominant force on the planet, it just means the occult. So in every culture, whether it was the Aztecs or the underlying Mayan and Toltec and Olmec culture before them, some estimates go back 15,000 years in Mesoamerica, all of these priest classes were basically set up the same. The gods may have differed, but priest class simply meant you were taught how to farm, you were taught about medicine, you were taught about mathematics, you were taught about architecture, you were taught about the stars, you were taught about warfare, and the priest class was the most powerful class. They would have a royal bloodline leadership that was the titular head or the political class. And you'd have a warrior class under them, then you'd have the farmers and all the people under that in a pyramid. But at the top of the pyramid, the all-seeing eye, is the priest class. And so when we think about masonry, is the little Mason, lodge down the street that has spaghetti dinners on Friday night and are talking about Hiram Abiff and the architect of Solomon's temple and this stuff. Are they running anything? No, the answer is zero. Are they bad people? Absolutely not. George Washington was
there. That's like the Elks Lodge or something. Like
I feel like I should write a book about this because they say it's all hidden. It's not hidden. None of it is. So if you go back to modern Western Masonic orders, and there's the same orders all over the world, basically just different variations of it. Solomon has the secrets after they leave Egypt, after King David and all that, and in the Promised Land, and they've carried on the Egyptian mystery religions, and all that meant was how to build an arch, what the stars were, how they moved, mathematics. That's magic to the general public, okay? And that's something you guard. You don't give the mystery school to the average person. The royalty goes to it. Other people they choose go to it to be part of the priest class. And so the whole system's controlled by the priest class. They got one temple that is to fertility, and that's the prostitution temple. It's a business. And you've got another temple that is to architecture, and another temple that's to mathematics of the stars, another temple that is to the crops. And depending on the priest class where you are, they get more sophisticated as the civilizations get bigger, as you start having cattle and sheep and farms and money and all this. And so to say, do Masons run it, the system of hidden knowledge, the modern Masons are the intelligence agencies. They have the intel. They're spying. They're collating the information. They decide who knows what. And so it's like the PhDs are kind of the modern Masons. And so that's all it is. But no, the modern Masonic lodges have basically almost no power other than fundraising mechanisms. And they're kind of a neoliberal view. They go along with Democrats mainly and socialists because it's for a greater good and they're an ancient order, but they're not really being taught anything. And Scottish Rite and all that is just basically teaching entry-level secrets of Solomon's temple, Egyptian magic, Jewish mysticism. But then if you look at Jewish mysticism and compare it to, Grand Grimoire and European occultism and stuff, it's all the same thing. And so, no, the Masonic orders don't run anything anymore, but the systems of population control, the systems of keeping knowledge hidden from the general public, that's universal in control of populations. And so what people would think of as the Masons, just meaning any hidden group or precursors to intelligence agencies, and trauma-based mind control, torture, human sacrifice, that wasn't something particularly in the Masons, but that was part of the mystery schools. They would learn about groups that did that and why they did that. They were learning about all these organizations and groups. So they were unocculted or unhidden or illuminated. And so they're, quote, the Illuminati. And then you get Adam Weishaupt, who goes and sets up the French Revolution, and it's kind of a counterfeit of ours. And George Washington, who was a master Mason, 33rd degree, he writes letters that are in the National Archives. You make a type in George Washington letters on the Illuminati, you'll see the dozens of them, scans of his letters about, hey, I stand for Masonic order that's for Christianity and empowering humanity, and teaching business and knowledge. And what we have now in our colleges is an externalization of that. Colleges are only like 500 years old, so that's an externalization of the good part of Masonry is literature and culture and the Renaissance. And Washington says, I support that. That's the real Masonic order. But he says Adam Weishaupt and the Illuminati have taken over. This is after he's president. This is, when the French Revolution's going, which is a counterfeit of ours. Ours really was about empowering, really was the virtuous side. There's always the dark side that then tried to overthrow the church and overthrow the aristocracy and overthrow the nobility, not to get rid of them, but to recreate it, setting themselves up on top of it. So that's what the counterfeit of illumination, because Christ says, I'm here to bring light to the world. Well, there's a counterfeit that brings light only the ones that know, like an owl is their symbol because it can see in the dark and nobody else can. So they're illuminated, but you're not illuminated. But then they're really not illuminated because they're keeping the light from everybody, so they're actually in darkness themselves. And so the Catholic Church itself is super old. It absorbed all the old occultic religions and the Saturnalias and all of that, worshippers of Saturn, Jupiter, all of it, and has been a mystery school itself. And so the Vatican's been extremely powerful in this whole world government, global domination thing. But then you have conservative Catholics that are against it, that are compartmentalized. So I wouldn't say the Jews run it. That's a diverse group of 6 different major groups of Jews. Most of their systems aren't even the same. You've got conservatives, liberals, there's a civil war in Israel. So people love to dumb this down and create camps of, is it the Masons? Is it the Jews? Is it the Catholics? Is it the British intelligence agencies? Is it the communist Chinese? And what it is just powerful, entrenched elites that know human nature and how to control people, that'll form alliances from time to time and work together, but that know these secrets and have decided to keep it from the public. And so if you had to say one group is dominant, because it isn't even a group, it's just precursors to intelligence agencies and colleges, and they're basically the academia of the ancient time.
That makes sense. Yeah, it reminds me sort of the mafia and organized crime, right? Where you have these disparate groups that are all essentially engaging in the same behaviors and have very similar business models and are sometimes in opposition, but they're kind of all still part of the bad guys, right? You know what I mean? That's how I look at
that. Analogy is perfect. I love how you boil it down in 5 seconds when I try to do it in 30 minutes.
Well,
that's exactly what's happening. And so they have turf wars and they steal knowledge of control from each other. They all want human cloning. They all want life extension because they want it, but they're not all in one group.
Got it. Yeah. I think that human nature and the tendency, and maybe that's kind of the basis of my question, is we want to put a target on the enemy, right? And so we feel the need to kind of corral them into a certain group. We want to finally get to the bottom. Okay, it's the Jesuits. God damn it, we got to root them out, right? But it's so much more, from your answer, so much more complex and nuanced than that, because there are levels to the illumination of knowledge. And not everyone within an organization necessarily is knowingly contributing to wrongdoing and evil.
Well, exactly. And I would say in the Catholic Church, if you got to talk about who the really bad force is, it's the Jesuits. So people say, well, is it the Jesuits? No. But if you look at the Jesuits and Loyola, they come to make the church stay more right-wing and orthodox. But then when that fails, they become the liberals who are going to open the church up. See, and now they're the liberals. And really, it was just a group trying to take over the Catholic Church.
Right. Because if they, I mean, that's the thing when the folks in power have these fluctuations between putting on the liberal versus the conservative mask, their actions prove that their agenda is still the same no matter what mask they're wearing, right? So if they put on the cloak of inclusivity and fairness and progressivism, when you look at the fruits of their actions that ultimately end in war and famine and all the things throughout history, it doesn't really matter whether they're putting on the cloak of conservatism or progressivism. Their agenda is always seemingly behind it, regardless
Absolutely.
of how they're
And the
presented.
agenda is consolidate power, consolidate wealth, because just like you trim your yard with an oak tree, little baby oaks come up, they're called bad sons. They want to cut those down. Just like a grizzly bear will get the female bear pregnant, and she's called a sow, and he's called a dog, but I forget. And then he will come smell the baby if he can. If it's a male, he'll kill it. That's his son, but he thinks it's going to grow up and try to mate with other females, so he kills it. And so it's really preying on your best and brightest and claiming you're empowering civilization when you're really dumbing it down because you're threatened by humanity's overall strength. And I think that's really the ultimate sin, is getting upset when you see somebody better looking and smarter than you come along. That's all part of our collective wealth. And so I see people that are doing well and doing great. It makes me happy. I think the fundamental foundation of their corruption is that they don't like seeing real prosperity.
The United States is a corporation, and the person that we view as the president and the leader is essentially the CEO of that corporation. And then within the United States of America, you have sub-corporations like the Corporation of Texas and the Corporation of Travis County, Austin, the city of Austin, right? You have this kind of corporate structure. And I don't think many people realize that this is just one big business, right? And then each country has its own set of corporations. And I've heard some people allude to the idea that the United States is no longer, and maybe has never been, a sovereign corporation, that it's in fact owned by the Vatican, some say, or owned by the City of London, not London, the city in England, but the City of London, the international banking cartel center there.
Well, I know who owns it.
Yeah, tell us.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is basically all true. I mean, the City of London is, as you know, the most expensive real estate in the world. It's not the main city. It's the City of London, the financial district within London, for those that don't know. And it's got shareholders that are the black nobility from old Italy, back when it was city-states, and the Vatican's heavily invested in it. So again, it's all inbred. It's the Rothschilds are inbred in with the British royalty, who are themselves are German and Eastern European royalty. Literally, the House of Dracula is their original precursor.
Really?
If you look up Prince Charles and the Saxe-Coburg-Gothas, their founder, who they say is the founder of their line, is Count Dracula.
Wow.
And so that's why when Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, and it's like, oh, he's a count, and he lives under the abbey during the day, and at night he comes out and does bad things. That's when you had Jack the Ripper out, who was the crown prince, killing everybody at the time. So it's kind of telling you what was going on. Not literally a vampire, but it goes on and on. You have the House of the Dragon. I swear this sounds insane. Just anybody out there, search engine Prince Charles, Count Dracula, you'll see it. He actually lives in the main old Dracula castle now most of the time. He actually stays in the Carpathian Mountains, but can't make this up. But what was
who owns the United States?
Okay. The war wasn't about tea prices, tea taxes. If you actually study the founders' writings, George Washington came from a royal bloodline, but his family wasn't lords at the time. And he was a prospector in Virginia and a bunch of places, became very wealthy in very rough circumstances, and they would still never have given commission to the British military. So if you weren't a British lord, you couldn't even do main business and sell directly to England. And you had to have like a green or black carriage from England that was equivalent like $100 million today, because you had to be shipped in a ship with perfect paint, with the perfect seal. You had to have perfect clothes to even be at court to go talk to a lord. So all the things you had to jump through, there were all these Americans that were part of the 13 colonies that were chartered under the crown and were corporations. Just like the British East India Company in India and other areas was a corporation. So 100% the colonies were corporations. There was a corporate takeover in 1776, and it was ostensibly about, we're not going to have to go through the lords or kings anymore. And as soon as George Washington won the war, King George III said the greatest man alive in the world is George Washington, because he immediately double-crossed the French and signed a treaty with the British and said, now we're back in business. So you see what you want about George Washington, he had a chip on his shoulder. But he immediately signed the deal with the British like a week after they capitulated. And because a bunch of British wanted to be in business too, and were pissed at the Lords. So he had agents in the British. That's why he could fight armies that were 10 times his size and lose most of the battles, but still win the war because of sabotage. He started winning the last 6 months because there was already, George Washington was an extenuation of the civil wars that happened in England. And people were pissed off about it. So he was a good guy. It was a renaissance, but he legitimately wanted to get out from under that. So we talk about the Federal Reserve, and they talk about birth certificates and how they certify them as collateral. All that's true. All that goes on. And yes, the 13 colonies, by the end of the war, I guess in 1783 or whatever, they, or 1782, they got their own charter. And that's why it was a big deal. No one had their own charter. So George Washington, even though he didn't want to be king, they tried to make him king, he was set up under their charter. And they were like, oh, we're sure to get a king soon. Like, okay. We just agreed you're your own kingdom now. And America got set up as its own kingdom under that charter. And then that's why as the British Empire declined, Winston Churchill wrote 3-volume set, The History of the English-Speaking Peoples, which I've read, you should read it. You know, he was half American. He talked about the fight with our cousins. As the British Empire declined after World War I, they handed the baton publicly to the United States to be the new center of the new British Empire. And so since then, we've been back under it. And so there was a remerger from the colonies into the British Empire in about the 20s through Pratt House and the CFR. And then the British, not like we were buddies with them perfectly. Civil War, the British intelligence funded both sides of that to get the war going, and actually funded the South and then double crossed the South. They were trying to split up the North and South, and then the British were going to control Western expansion, but that failed. So there's been a real contentious battle going on there. But yeah, that's when you say who owns it, the private shareholders of the Federal Reserve, which has been secret since 1913, 110 years ago. Back then, though, it came out that 82% or so was basically British and Austrian-Hungarian royalty owns the United States. And they're so powerful. It's not Jeff Bezos. It's not Elon Musk. It's not Bill Gates, the richest people in the world. I mean, this is all inflated currency.
Yeah.
These people control quadrillions with inflated currency.
What about the dual systems of law in this country between maritime law that everyone follows and believes that they're obligated to follow, and then common law? You know, you mentioned the birth certificate, where if we're born in a hospital and our parents don't know better, we'll be issued this birth certificate in all caps. And it's, like Jordan Maxwell would talk about, it's a birth like a ship, and all the languaging around that. I've seen videos of people going into court and not submitting to jurisdiction of that court and following
but even most of the judges don't know that, yeah.
And there's a parallel system of law in this country is what I'm saying, that most people aren't aware of.
Oh, there definitely is.
And not only are we not aware of it, it requires so much rigorous study to beat it and operate within the pre-existing system of common law that most people don't know.
And here's the problem, though. Even when you beat it, force majeure, force of law, force of God, the force of the time, they just ignore it and run over you. Okay. And the average judge doesn't even know all this stuff. But let me give you an example. We're going completely away from common law, Declaration of Independence, Constitution, Bill of Rights, starting with Declaration of Independence, 1776, through 1798 with the Bill of Rights. The final thing saying, we don't get rights from this. These points outright, they're unalienable, you can't take. And so now they've taken the velvet glove off the iron fist. So they're teaching administrative law, which is Admiralty law everywhere now. And even local district judges, state judges are now following it. And so you used to default somebody in a civil case now we're even doing it in criminal cases, if they totally disappeared, you still had to have a trial and prove they were guilty, but they didn't have to be there. Notice Trump is in this real estate trial. There's no jury.
Yeah.
The judge has found him guilty. They just passed the law.
It's insane. Even if they were doing that to someone that I don't like. I mean, if they brought Fauci into court for his crimes against humanity, for which he's obviously guilty, and he was determined to be guilty by a biased judge rather than a jury of his peers.
Well, there's a reason.
I would be fucking pissed, even though I believe he's guilty.
Well, here's another reason we have a trial. Even we saw Fauci slitting children's throats on television. We want a trial to find out who he's working with and why he did it. That's to bring out the other people. Exactly. So exactly. Better that 10 guilty men go free than one innocent man go to jail.
Right.
So, and I only interrupt you because you make me think.
No, it's good. Go.
Comments are so good. That's exactly what's happening here. So now, across the board, criminally and civilly, they don't call it default, but in the Proud Boys and in the Oath Keepers trials, the judges in D.C., and they're setting the precedent for us, the country, said, I find you guilty of terrorism. You carried out terrorism. And you're not allowed to say you're innocent. Then they control what the lawyers can say, or they'll disbar them or put them in jail for contempt. And then they sit there and rig the jury and instruct them to convict. But in the case of Trump, they've gotten rid of a jury altogether. And the judge is having a trial. And while the judge attacks him on his newsletter, online, his wife attacks him, and then gags Trump. So think about the impartiality completely out the window. So what happened to me in my rigged trials in Texas and Connecticut? Look it up. Gave them all the discovery. There was nothing there. Didn't do anything they said I did. Not me peeing on graves. Not me sending people's houses. Me a few times on the air going, yeah, I can see how I don't think this happened. That's it. That they create this straw man. Then the judges, all coordinated, literally State Department, Justice Department, CIA involved. It's come out in Congress. Think tanks, the main UN think tank, PR firms. They find me guilty. Look it up. The judge finds Jones guilty for non-discovery. Same thing in Connecticut. Gave them everything. Then they put cherry-picked information in front of the jury and tell them to find me. They say he's already guilty. Here's how guilty he is. So at least in mine, they had a jury, but just to decide how guilty I was. Not innocent until proven guilty. Not guilty until proven innocent, which is not what we do. We're innocent until proven guilty. It was guilty until proven how guilty. And so they're removing the any pretense of the Constitution, any velvet glove over common law, and going directly to Admiralty. And in Admiralty, as you know, it's the captain, it's the admiral. You're a ship at sea.
Yeah.
You're a corporation. Why are you under British common law? It's the same French common law. It goes back to the Romans who first codified maritime law over 2,000 years ago in the Mediterranean. On a ship, you're in an emergency because of the waves and the storms. And there's no, and so the captain's God.
Even when you go on a cruise ship, you can gamble and drink booze at all hours, right?
Exactly.
There's different set of laws at sea than there are on the land. It's the law of the land versus the land of the sea. So you're saying you obviously have an awareness of this much greater than my understanding of it. I just hear bits and pieces of it and I think, well, this is really interesting. I think people don't know that there's kind of two sets of law. So
we'll take 007. He's got license to kill. He's above the law. Well, that they actually have for Delta Force and the Navy SEALs and SAS. They say, okay, you will not be held accountable. No court will court-martial you because we want you to do we want you to kill people. You're now above the law. That's Admiralty because you're in an emergency.
Right. And so one of the games that the controllers seem to play is create a constant state of emergency, right? Through as I was saying, the war on terror.
They actually fiscally every year have a new reason to declare an emergency.
Yeah.
Congress is operating under an emergency since 1933 with the Emergency Powers Act. And you look at it, Great Depression happened. There's also another emergency deal they did in 1929. Yeah, we've been under the Emergency Powers Act, and they reissue the emergency every year. So you know your stuff, man. And it's real. But again, they're all just forms to see what we'll go along with. But just imagine, like, they're having trials of, quote, conservatives everywhere with no jury now. Or they have a jury as a rubber stamp.
So from your perspective, is the pursuit of educating oneself on the law of the land, on common law, even worth the effort? As I'm saying, I'm seeing, there's a famous in my circles of a guy who looks like a homeless guy who's in court, and just, he knows the languaging. He knows the Black's Law Dictionary. He shuts the judge down. He will not stand. He doesn't follow any of the fucking rules of the court. And eventually the judge just walks out and case closed, case dismissed. He walks out a free man. And I've seen people do this getting pulled over by law enforcement. And it's a totally fallacious emergency, right? And they know the languaging of the Black's Law Dictionary. They get the supervisor to come. They're there for 2 or 3 hours. More cops come. The higher ups come, and eventually they're like, "You beat us. You're free to go, sir." And the guy have no license plates, no registration, and they're accusing him using the languaging of "you're driving," and the guy will say, "I'm not driving. I'm traveling from one location to another," and so on. So it seems like there are
you have a right to travel. Exactly. When you say driving, you put yourself under the regulations of laws they pass later. The Supreme Court says, "Oh, you can't stop somebody from traveling, but you can stop them from doing a delivery."
Yeah, there's a commercial aspect.
Yeah, it started out with trucks because they were creating potholes in the 20s.
Okay.
So they said, "Oh, only commercial vehicles, we're going to make them do this."
Right. So what I'm getting at here is that
law of commerce of the sea.
There are all of these statutes, regulations, laws, bylaws that we all innocently agree to, many times because we just want to be an upstanding citizen, right? And we're not anarchists or whatever. But we don't really have to be following them according to.
Yeah, what we're doing is complying with our own destruction. So let me. This is a really heavy point.
So what I'm asking essentially is there any point to learning this and educating more people about what our true inalienable God-given rights are in this country or any other country? Is it worth the fight to go that route?
Well, that's again, these are the best questions ever. That's a huge question. I don't know how much time I have to answer.
We got all day.
Well, people have to be really careful about this because there's a lot of charlatans out there that are going to teach patriot law, common law, and their interpretation. Just because it worked with one judge doesn't mean it's going to work with another. But are we under Admiralty law? Are we segueing off of the track of common law and the Constitution over to maritime law, over to administrative law? They admit we are. Are they having more and more trials without juries or a rubber stamp jury? Damn right they are. So yes, they're leaving the old system and moving over to classical court-martial Admiralty type stuff. Okay. That said, the bigger issue is this. And if I had like a Venn diagram or a whiteboard up, I could basically draw an image of this. But imagine there's a whiteboard. And up here, we have 1776, 1798. The ideals of freedom are there. We never really realize it, but people are trying to enforce it. And then as you go into tyranny, once you pass the 50% mark for going down, the social contract is broken.
Okay. So, because Germany had a constitution.
Weimar Republic, yeah.
What good did that do in the end, right? Because like you said, they passed a certain threshold of tyranny and then all bets are off and the whole thing is...
Yeah, Hitler firebombed his own Reichstag on February 27, 1933, and they used that for control and a bunch of other issues, exactly. And it was an angrier country because it was a bad economy. Klaus Schwab says we're going to make things angry. We're going to bring in our control. So when you get to a point the social contract's broken, you can sit there and say, "Oh, I'm going to learn how to counter this in the court and learn my rights." That is somewhat effective at a certain point. Okay, to push back on that. But there's another thing you can do. I'm not saying do this, but their holy grail is a cashless society, a social credit score that tracks and controls and shuts down local economies. They're scared of going to farmers markets. They're scared of gardens. They're scared of people knitting their own clothes. And I'm certainly not anywhere near this. I'm telling you what they're scared of. Just because I say something's a good idea doesn't mean I'm doing it. Not shopping at box stores, shopping mom and pop, getting, as down to earth as you can get.
Like bartering at the farmer's market.
Absolutely, because they're going to force you into this. And they can say, "Oh, for your social credit score, just agree to vote Democrat at first." But then it's going to get a higher and higher benchmark you got to make to, in their system. Down to being sterilized, down to signing a date in the future to be euthanized. I mean, they admit these are their plans.
They're doing the euthanization. Yeah.
No, they're definitely phasing it in, saying, "Oh, yeah, that's a whole other discussion." So here's what I'm saying. building alternative economies while you fight in this system and not complying at a certain point. Because when the social contract's broken, they're not used to clean-cut, smart, hardworking people breaking the law. And I've never broken the law. I'm simply telling listeners, when we get a government that's pure tyranny and a cashless society, that its whole system is the science of tyranny and designed to oppress us, it's called civil disobedience. When tyranny is the law, following the law is oblivion. So we are entering the wheelhouse of non-compliance, Dukes of Hazzard. We're not hurting anybody. We're not killing anybody, but we're not paying taxes and we're not submitting and we're brewing our own moonshine in the back 40 and, whatever it takes. So the law of survival means people need to start learning how to be outlaws. And I'm only saying this for the first time here today because I'm having to get my mind wrapped around that. I tried to fix things. I tried to turn things around. And there is a big awakening happening, but it may be a day late, $1 short. And so in the interim, people have to get ready to look, if you've got 100 people, one's a dentist, one's a mechanic, one's a school teacher, one's an electrician, one's a psychologist, one's a podcaster, one's a gunsmith, all of you together could literally helping each other survive. So the most valuable thing is friends and family and neighbors and skills. And I'm saying the New World Order, post-industrial, Agenda 2030 is a broken society by design to bring us to our knees, to bring in this hellscape where you're locked in your house, you get credits to buy food because you're in the metaverse 10 hours a day, literally opting into MK Ultra brainwashing. I mean, they've got this all figured out. I mean, this isn't down the road. This is like 2 feet away. This is here. This is a right. And so, fight them in the system, out of the system, but people better get ready.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry to go so long on that question.
No, dude.
You asked me a question of about, yeah, I mean, it's 100% real. We are under Admiralty martial law.
Brother.
They're having trials everywhere with no juries.
Let it rip. I love
That's martial law.
Yeah.
When you're in a trial to take his whole New York empire, the collapse, his high rises, his golf courses, off one little judge who says F Trump on his Facebook, on his wife.
It's terrifying. And the fact that people are not, I wouldn't consider myself a Trump supporter.
Oh no, Trump could be. I mean, Trump could be Wile E. Coyote. If Wile E. Coyote loses his rights, we all do.
I don't care who it is. It's not right. And I think that's the thing I find so interesting about the Admiralty versus common law is the law of the land is based on fundamental first principles, right?
Common sense.
There has to be an injured party.
Have you been harmed?
Yeah. Have you harmed anyone? And so when I see someone persecuted because people in power don't like their ideas or the words coming out of their mouth, they attribute an injured party that is fallacious and doesn't actually exist.
We'll take Trump.
There is no.
We're going to take your whole business empire and devalue all the people that bought property with you and hurt them because you got loans 30 years ago, 25 years ago that you paid off that worked. There's no injured party. You just said it.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you under habeas corpus, show me the body. Where's the crime?
Yeah. Yeah, I as I was saying, I love those videos where people buck up against that, and a guy will get pulled over and he'll say, "What's the emergency?" Because they have emergency lights on. The officers, and I'm not anti-law enforcement. I think the whole system is just extremely,
an emergency
corrupt.
Is a guy's legs cut off. You got to get him to the hospital.
Yeah.
And we as a culture say in the social contract, we agree we'll pull over for some of their legs off.
But
where's the emergency pulling over a soccer mom because she's 10 miles over the speed limit?
Well, here in the town I live, I think that's top of mind because there's a real racket going on with speeding 2 to 5 miles an hour over the speed limit in this little suburb we live in. And they'll pull you over. It's $300. So I'm driving down the road when I see cops. And I'm sure they're good people. They're indoctrinated into a system of robbery, right?
What they are is they're like a dog.
I see them as a bandit who's trying to extort me for money when there's no injured party. I haven't hurt anyone. I haven't harmed anyone.
Well, that's right. But they're like a dog. They get a biscuit when they give you a ticket.
Right. So I think that's why it's fascinating. But I do want to point back to one thing you said. that playing with the law game is a very sophisticated game. And I just want to urge people, please be careful, because I have heard stories of someone, oh, I'm doing common law now, and I tore up my birth certificate and quit paying taxes, and it hasn't worked out well for them. So I think it's, there's a lot of people online that, I'll teach you how to opt out of the system.
Well, I mean, here's the deal. Up until now, you can go move in with your family and live in the country. And if a bunch of your family gets together, you can build nice cabins, live in the woods, grow some food. Everybody's got a job at the Walmart, a job at the gas station, and a job at the ranch next door. And boy, everybody pools their resources, which humans are supposed to do. It's great for a nuclear family or a man and woman to have a big house and nice stuff by themselves. But in the past, we all got together to build stuff. They're bringing in their cashless society, their social credit score, and the ESG, central bank digital currency system. That is designed to shut it down. Boom. So I'm saying people need to set it up now. And more importantly than common law battling them and all this garbage is to get together, they'll call it a cult, your family, your friends, and get self-sufficient and then stay off the radar. Because unless you're going to be politically active, that's great. But people should choose. I'm going to take this on head on. I'm going to fight this on the front lines. But also just going to the country and growing food and getting out of the system, that's going to form the ecosystems in the future, because this is a post-industrial world they're setting up. This is a new dark age.
And the thing about that, to your point, is that the only thing that keeps the matrix structure in its integrity, keeps the power system of tyranny going, is literally our compliance. Imagine if, because there's so many more of us, well-meaning, kind-hearted, productive, creative, good people than there are these Luciferian controlled freaks.
And you alluded to that earlier. You're like, I want to work with the system. I want to help people. I'm not a rebel. I'm not a contrarian for no reason. But when the system comes against you, on average, we still try to get in the system and fix it, because there's some good places and bad places. It's a mix. But yeah, when the system's at war with you, you have to stop complying with the sectors of it that you know are bad. They'll say, well, who are you to choose? We know good. We know right from evil. We've now entered the wheelhouse where it's time to stop complying. I mean, it really is. Wherever you think something is, and like you said, it's always blaringly obvious. Maybe you should get a radar gun and get the cops going on the speed. There's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah. But I've thought about getting one of those radar jammers, and you can install it under the hood.
Oh, yeah.
You know about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like the radar jammers. I think people in Texas have. One thing I've noticed here, my wife would agree, people drive like freaking maniacs in Texas. So I think that's why they need these radar jammers. Next thing I want to ask you is the false paradigm of choice in politics, left versus right, that we can choose one leader over this leader, or we can have a predominantly Republican-led government or Democrat-led government. My perspective, if I can kind of zoom way out, is that the entire premise of any human being having authority over another is inherently fallacious. That this idea, this hallucination that we've opted into, that a king or a queen or royalty just assumes dominance over any other person, is not only wrong, it's just totally false. Yet we're just born into it generation after generation, so we don't question it, right? Like, it's this illusion of choice, and we're actually happy about getting the leader that we pick. But what if there were just, well, a leader's not a controller that we pick, when none of them actually deserve to control another person, right? Like, say I was born a specific bloodline and I'm going to tell Alex Jones what you can and can't do. It's just inherently
that's
wrong.
Again, that's the old question of civilization, is that once things get complex, there's got to be some ordering force. So now they say, well, let's have an AI computer that does it, but it's going to be programmed by somebody. And so that's what they're selling now, the technocracy. And so that's why in a republic, the minority's protected as well as the majority. It's still a very, very messy system. And until Trump came along, and he's not perfect by a long shot, the Republicans and Democrats were all basically bought off, or anybody that wasn't bought off, they were constantly indicting populist Republicans and some Democrats, like James Traficant, who they probably killed or Kennedy, who they killed. And so people get a populist inclination, the system comes and takes them out. We have to start rallying behind our populist leaders like William Wallace, and he got killed, but then they had another leader that defeated the system, but then he became corrupted as well. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is it's the imperfection of humanity. But if we're informed and we're engaged and we're involved, and we ourselves don't get in cliques and really make it about issues, then I think it's like the free market when it's actually manifest, which is very rare. It creates incredible things because our desires and our collective will is individual in its application, but in its overall administration collective. And so we all individually make decisions, but collectively it manifests. And so that's the direction I want to go, is the knowledge of the crowd. That's why they try to program the crowd with these mind viruses, try to hijack the crowd, because what the crowd wants, we build. People that complain, these rich people that, I don't like big traffic and cities and all these people. Well, 90% of people live in cities. We congregate because there's choices in business and energy, and we all basically need each other. So we need to stop hating each other and stop thinking of each other as bad and just strive to build a better civilization and a better society. The globalists are like, we'll depopulate 9% of the world. Well, they'll never have enough, robots to, quote, even upkeep things. It's all a lie. All the actuaries show that. It's all a fraud. And
not everyone can be a robot polisher. Klaus Schwab said.
Yeah.
It's one of the best. He says it in public. Like,
not everyone can polish the robot.
These people come out and say they're anyway. But the point I'm getting to there is, and I'm no history buff to the degree that you are, but
I'm not better.
Again, if I just look at the basic evidence at hand, no matter what form of consolidated government you have, of what ilk and what stripe, whether it's communism, socialism, some derivative thereof, democracy, republic, whenever you have large groups of people that buy into the superstition, the hallucination that anyone deserves to have power over them, even if you have good people that enter into those government systems, those systems corrupt them. And so, if you look throughout history and all of the mass genocide that's taken place, it's all taken place at the hand of some form of government. So my thing is like, well, maybe the answer is no government at all. And I don't know how that pans out.
Well, Karl Marx would say that the state grows and then the means of production goes up so much that he decentralizes. And that's kind of what Google and Klaus Schwab are saying, but they're not bringing less government, they're bringing more. They're just bringing a corporate form of governance and a computer form of governance that micromanages every facet of our lives. But you're absolutely right. What we need to teach is morals and valuing real human rights and decentralizing power, busting up trust like Teddy Roosevelt did. Because Microsoft was broken up in the late 1990s. Look at it now. There's oligopolies and monopolies many times bigger. Look at Google as a monopoly on search, and it just goes from there. So we have the tools to mitigate what's going on. And as you said, our imperfection, is why we seek perfection, and is our perfection. But absolutely, you look at government and how one group gets in to take away from another group. And then Pol Pot said, kill everybody in the country wearing glasses. Because it's the smart, educated people, they're going to question us. And that's really the modern globalist system is they've deliberately had Common Core where 2 + 2 can equal 6. They've really deliberately messed up society to make it more manageable. And to me, that's a sin. To try to dumb people down so they're more easily manageable. I think we should start with, don't dumb people down because you don't want to compete with them. Any idiot these globals think they're so smart, they don't think dumbing people down is going to blow back on them. It already is. And I know a lot of people that know the top globalists, and I know some of them, almost all their children either end up in mental institutions or transgender, hating themselves, or committing suicide. And the globalists are completely unhappy, divorced from reality. Most of them just go to award ceremonies to be given awards and be clapped at by people that don't even care about them. They're just disconnected. And I would just tell them, you're not happy because you're not going with your human code. And I think the first thing we should do is, what is it to be human? What is it to be natural? What is it to be primitive? And it's not that primitive is even primitive. It's our natural state, and then project that onto the modern times.
Yeah. Well, every human being, I think, inherently is born with a moral compass.
Yes.
Right. And that moral compass is so diminished by the system of control that we have this chaos in society. And then they offer the solution of them overseeing the morality of civilization, right? We're going to tell you the difference between right and wrong when we each know that. And I imagine a world going back to hunter-gatherers. Say you're in a tribe of 50 or 60 people and someone rapes someone. That's not going to fly. You don't need a police force or a government or a military to stop that. The majority of the people in that group are going to know inherently that that's wrong, and they're going to see to it that that person is prevented from doing it again.
Well, the first time they're going to get their ass kicked and thrown out for a year. The next time they're going to get killed.
Right. So as I'm saying, I think human beings have a strong enough moral compass, if they're allowed to develop it and it's encouraged, that we'll police ourselves.
No, you're right. I mean, I think what you're saying is, this has been proven, the very worst people seek power. And the idea we started out with that, okay, I'm not perfect, but what they've accused me of, I never did, but I'm the worst guy in the world when the globalists are bragging about carpet bombing civilians and killing millions of Iraqis and saying they do it again. But it's like, oh, well, she's a woman. So she's a liberal woman. Isn't that powerful? She killed millions of people. It's a woman, though. It's okay. It's all just jingoism gimmicks, and it just means nothing. It's all obscene. So, see, if it was a big man in a uniform, I killed millions, we'd be threatened by that archetypally. Epigenetically, that's a big, dangerous man saying, I'm going to kill. But if it's a little fat woman, it's like, oh, it's so cute. She killed millions.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. God bless her. Women are finally in charge.
Oh, man.
And again, I'm not against women being in charge, but they put her out there as the front. Oh, look, it's a little fat woman in a business suit with a big brooch. And now she's talking about killing millions of kids. Isn't that sexy? And it's just, it's all, they know what they're doing.
Going back to the decentralization, it seems like two huge turning points in the demise of this country were with the institution of the Federal Reserve. And then again, I think it was Nixon around 71 or something that took us off the gold standard. Seems like those two events in terms of monetary control, those were two of the big linchpins in what got us to where we are, headed towards hyperinflation and the whole system of control, having this fiat currency. The entire financial infrastructure is completely fake. It's like a dollar's not a dollar. So therefore you can fluctuate it at will. What do you see as, something like decentralized Bitcoin or anything that can, at least from a financial standpoint in this country specifically, be a path forward?
Well, that's right. Going back to the Federal Reserve Act, 1913, but they didn't have a way to really inflate currency other than fractional reserve banking. So every bank out there, for those that don't know, they had $1 of deposits, they could loan out $10. Or $100, they could loan out $1,000. And that started causing inflation issues. It was still tied to gold. As soon as they untethered it from gold in the early 1970s, look at the world today. I mean, look what a carton of eggs cost in 1975, like 30 cents or something. And then now it's $5, $6, $7. It's the same thing happening again. That's happened in Mexico, happened in the Weimar Republic, happened in Zimbabwe.
Argentina,
Venezuela. The elites always give themselves money up front during an inflationary move. They buy up the infrastructure, and then they pass all the debt on the public and the inflation that destroys savings, but then they're positioned with the money, so they actually do that on purpose. And so 80% of the money in U.S. history has been produced since Biden got in less than 3 years ago. Just type in 80% of U.S. money supply created in the last 3 years. So 80%, and soon it'll be, it'll be 90%. I mean, it's unspeakable that they've already turned the prices up this high, but they have to because of the derivatives and the selling mortgages dozens of times and everything that caused the 2008 crisis. They've put it off with bigger bubbles, and now there's no way to put this bubble back together. There's no way to keep it propped up. So we're coming to the end of their Ponzi scheme, and they want wars and open borders and crime and racism and defunding police to have it so demoralized with homeless and trash and all this that we just accept all of this because at least we're at home with my TV and my steel belted radios. Just leave me alone. Like Howard Beale says in Network, but I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad, goddammit. I want you to say you're alive. Because that's what they're trying to do, is demoralize us so things are so bad we don't mind what they've done, and it gets worse. Now they're going to bring in their new cashless society to micromanage every facet of our life and totally tell us where we can spend the money to vertically integrate it even more to themselves. So if people think we've been screwed so far, this has been an hors d'oeuvre compared to a feast of tyranny. I mean, the plans they've got, what they've said they're going to do, in their own words, is dystopic. And they're selling it like, you will eat bugs, you will drink sewage water, you will own nothing, you will like it, you'll be happy to commit suicide, you won't live in a private home anymore, you'll live in communes. This is all official. And you read it, it's like a nightmare, but they've already got their minions so scared and so alone, who get little basic income money, that get little government handouts, corporate handouts. And as long as they obey working at Google and working at these companies and toe the line and go to the re-education meetings, they get raises. And that doesn't go as far as it used to, but they're still, we're okay. We'll eat bugs. Yes, we'll. And it's all just training them to get that final administrative class in place as they bring in the AI, as they bring in the robots, as they bring in the post-human military. And they're just going to finish us off. And then they really believe they're going to have all this fabulous technology and all this life extension and all this cloning, and that they're about to become gods and whatever this, Yuval Noah Harari, the future's not human. Humans are obsolete. Humans will soon be gone. There won't be anything but cyborgs in 2047. And you go, well, that's megalomania. Well, they're in control. So Hitler, I'll have a 1,000-year Reich and we'll rule the world. Okay. The point is, they're going to try this, and it's not going to go well. So everybody better understand, you are under attack. They think you're worthless, and they're coming to steal everything you've got, steal your dreams, brainwash you, and then finally kill your ass.
Do you think Bitcoin is hopeful in terms of a
absolutely
alternate monetary system that's not centralized? And
absolutely. To finish your original question, sorry, go ahead. You're right.
Oh, that's it.
No, I mean,
because there's no going back on the gold standard at this point, right? We're too far.
Absolutely, too far on. I think anything new is going to have a Wild West. Anything's going to have pump and dumps. Everybody should know that any of this is speculative. You got to be careful. But Bitcoin has stood the test of time, and it's decentralized. And compared to the central bank digital currencies and what they're pushing, it's wonderful. I think we should have 5 or 6 Bitcoins, and whatever works the best and is the safest should be agreed upon. And I want it decentralized, not under the control of corporations, not under the control of governments that admit that their new digital programmable coins are for control.
What's up with Antarctica? Why did all these countries sign this treaty that doesn't allow any civilians to go explore it? If all these countries are in opposition, as they pretend to be, even though it's kind of one unified front, as we've been discussing, what's their hang up?
I don't want to speculate, but to answer the question, there's a lot of other important points to look at before I try to answer the question as best I can. The UN was set up in 1946 at the Presidio in San Francisco, and officially set up with the Rockefeller money in New York after that. And it's all about keeping secret scientific projects that are going on secret. So in the 50s, 70s, 80s, you name it, they signed treaties about weather modification that are public treaties saying we won't let the public know about it and we won't use it for weapons. But they had a Nobel Prize in 92 for spraying aluminum dioxide, barium salts to, quote, control the weather and block out global warming. And then people start pointing out it's going on. And then now they basically admit it's going on, but it's still a conspiracy. You can pull up the CIA director under Obama. Brennan admitting it all. Just having Brennan admits weather control. So this is all happening. And I believe the world's round. I believe we're a sphere. But obviously Antarctica is gigantic. And if you research this, there's only one place under the treaty, a little peninsula, that they allow people to go. And it's very controlled. And I have talked to people high level that have worked at NASA that said there is satellites that actually go down there. They supposedly don't have satellites there. And that there is a lot of stuff going on. Unlike the North Pole, that is ice, Antarctica is a landmass. It has ice around it some. And reportedly, from a lot of really good sources, there is a lot of ruins there that are much older than anything in Egypt or China or anywhere else. And that's why they got really freaked out by it. And that's why they don't want anybody going down there. And at one time, probably from a pole shift previously, just how the planet's oriented, summer and winter and all that is, how it's angled at the sun. And when we're angled away, it's the fall and winter, and the spring and summer is when we're angled towards it. That obviously the planet's moved around in how it's angled before, and that there's massive, just right under the snow, a forest, all sorts of stuff that was recently in the last million years or so there, and we know that's there. We know that there's a lot of huge deposits of minerals and things there, and there's several mountain ranges there. And also the UN and other international groups will try to keep anybody from circumnavigating Antarctica, but going all the way around it. So here's the planet, here's Antarctica, the Southern Pole. Why? What's going on here? So they're definitely trying to hide something that's down there, and I think that's as far as we can go. There's been a lot of disinformation and speculation about alien bases and all the rest of it, but I've seen real photos and research and things that that show that there's obviously large pyramids that aren't naturally occurring there, and a lot of other stuff going on.
Okay,
I mean, I can give you hidden knowledge stuff. I had Buzz Aldrin, who I also met with once in Los Angeles, 16 years ago. Well, the guy that supposedly piloted with Neil Armstrong the first landing on the moon. Supposedly, and he sits there and says, "We've got to go to the one moon of I forget its name of Mars, and there's an obelisk on that, and we need to go there." And he starts talking about aliens and all this stuff. Never said this anywhere else. Starts singing on my show. He asked to come on my show, and he also told me when I was in California that in a couple of years the Indians are going to crash a probe into the moon, and they're going to discover an ocean of water under the surface. But really, we already found it. We're going to let them find it. And I went and search engine did. This was like 15 years ago. It was nowhere in the news. 16 years ago. It was 2006. So man, time flies. So 17 years ago, however long ago it was. And years later, it's the Indians are going to crash a probe in and have another satellite above it that picks up, and the Indians discover water. So there's a lot of stuff they're suppressing, and I don't even begin to know it all. I don't even begin to even understand. Point is, what we're being told is not everything.
Well, that brings me to my next question. I've recently, for some reason, been very intrigued by NASA. And I think because I pay a lot of taxes, and NASA's budget is, $60 million a day. It's something astronomical and insane. So I'm thinking, well, what do they do with that? And going down the rabbit hole, as I sometimes do, I look at the alleged Challenger explosion and find that 7 of the 8 people that were supposed to have died on TV in 93 or whenever that was, early 90s, that they all 7 happened to have twins. So it's like 7 of them are basically still alive. There was no explosion. There was no Challenger.
Well, you're not supposed to question official narratives.
Yeah, WMDs
were in Iraq. Okay.
Yeah, and then looking into this, I said supposedly Buzz Aldrin. The moon stuff is just, at this point to me, is just comical. It's ridiculous. It's so phony. And you mentioned India. It kind of just flew by because our media is so.
The latest India lander. Yeah. Looks like a 1980s video game.
It looks like Atari.
It's like
yeah, and people are just like, sitting there in the stadium clapping at their accomplishment.
And it's like they did it on purpose because it's obviously
they're mocking us.
Like, what was the 1980s bit level for a video game? It's like
they're mocking us because we have the technology to make things look more realistic. When you see the CGI photos that are supposed to be in space, from whether they're from Fake X or from NASA, which stands for Not a Space Agency. When you look at the images, I mean, they have sophisticated enough tools like Photoshop and different CGI video programs where they could make it look real. So when they did that thing in India, I'm like, they got to just be, as the British would say, taking the piss out of us. I mean, it's like a mockery.
Well, did you see like the quote, Chinese probe? I mean, it's like you're looking at it and you go, this is 1960s space movies were better than this. I mean, it is just...
So do you think NASA is just...
well, when I went on Joe Rogan's show once, because Eddie Bravo was on it a couple times with me, I wore a NASA shirt as a joke. And then it became a meme. People say, oh, does he secretly work for NASA? Or any of those?
I mean, it seems like at its most innocent, it's a massive money laundering operation. I mean, that's the, on the surface level.
Well, Kennedy, it had already been set up by Eisenhower, but Kennedy officially set it up because he wanted a group other than the CIA that had been set up in 47 with the National Security Act, same year as the UN. He wanted to be able to set up an agency he could control. And that they could then funnel money into, like, remember the 1980s, $1,000 for a toilet seat, $800 for a hammer. At the Pentagon, people thought, no, it's going somewhere else.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. And then you mentioned, when I'm talking about Antarctica, you mentioned that you think the Earth itself is a sphere, and many people still believe that. Now that we have technology in our hands, like these telephoto lenses on cameras, the Nikon P1000, I think it's called, or something. I mean, there's amateur videos online that show that you can see too far to accommodate for the curvature. You know what I'm saying? So you can be across Lake Michigan and be on a level surface and see the skyline of Chicago when it should be on the other side of the curve, based on the
I haven't done the mathematics on that, and I think we're being lied to about a lot of physics. I'm not a mathematician, so I really can't speak to it. So some things go, far beyond my understanding. I know this: when I was in a senior in high school, they had the Meade telescopes that just come out that were programmable, and you could, aim them at the constellations, and it would like slowly track them. You can see like galaxies, the Horsehead Nebula, anything you wanted to see. And I would drive outside Austin with my dad mainly when I was, senior in high school, sophomore in college or freshman college, and we would aim the telescope up at Saturn or up at Jupiter. And I could sit there for hours with my dad drinking a couple beers, and we'd have a tent, go ahead and sleep out there. Like we'd drive out to Lano. And we'd spend 2 days with the telescope. During the day, we'd look at geckos a mile away, or, lizards crawling around a cactus during the day. These telescopes, was about like that big around diameter, about that long. He still has, I think, in storage. And you can put these magnifiers in there. And so I could put a 35 millimeter camera in there and then take a photo of Saturn. And then I've developed photos that are somewhere. I need to look in storage and find them, where on a picture that big, here's Saturn with the rings and its moons. And I took that. And I could sit there over 2 hours looking at Jupiter, and I could actually see Jupiter turning. So my issue is I could put a green lens on that telescope during the day, a sun lens, and I could sit there and I could take a photo once every 30 minutes, and the thing will track it because it's got a gyro and a computer control deal. And I could sit there, and I never did it for more than 3 hours, and I could watch the sun go while I was move substantively with sunspots on it. I could watch the globe, watch it moving. So I, with my own eyeballs through a telescope, that was a non-digital optic, look at the sun, and it's a sphere.
What's up with the Georgia Guidestones?
I don't know. They got blown up.
Yeah. Well, some people theorize that one of the reasons they blew up is because our understanding of the nature of reality and the size and shape of the Earth is becoming so widely known that the way that the stones were situated, there's a hole going through them where you could see Polaris year-round in the same exact spot, which would completely annihilate the...
You're right. I wondered why there was that hole there.
The heliocentric model is completely dismantled by that single observation.
Well, we ought to try to... Listen, you can convince me that the Earth's something else and please tell me. By the way, I was there about 2 years before they got blown up. It was during the lockdown. We were in Georgia for the recount, 2000. It was like November or December. And I said, I've never been to the Georgia Guidestones. Let's drive out there. And there was like a white horse in the field next to it, like the archetype of death, and this big white stallion. And like there's the big sign saying the big carving, we're going to reduce the world population to 500 million. Super creepy.
Very creepy.
And
actually, that inscription alone is, if that doesn't give you shivers, I don't know what will.
Well, you talk about perfect timing. I don't know if that inspired her or what, but there's a video on band.video that has all our band videos on it. And I go up and I say, I hope God knocks this down, and I hit it. And then it just gets blown up.
Wow.
Well, I'm sure everybody was pissed off about it, but
yeah.
But I mean, what about my question of, again, I understand the moon never moves, so you could say it's a flat circle. But what about the sun? Because you can get a green lens, a sun lens, and you can get a telescope and look at the sun, and you can sit there and hook a video camera to it. You can sit there and watch the sun as it goes. These systems will follow it, and you can watch it turning. You can watch the sun turning. So why is the sun round if the Earth's not round?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll probably never know, or at least not for a very long time.
Who knows? Maybe we're a giant spaceship.
Yeah.
Because, they could build one like that. I mean, they could,
yeah. Well, I think the nature of reality, when you get into debates like that, the nature of reality is all matter is a projection of our consciousness and our physical perception anyway, right? None of this is solid. You're not solid. I'm not solid. Everything is essentially light in different density, right?
I agree with you. I think it's healthy to have these discussions.
It's just the way my mind works. I'm just infinitely curious about the nature of reality. And I think many people listening, and I'm sure the large majority of your audience, are just people that have an insatiable hunger for the truth, capital T. It's like we want to know what reality actually is, even if it hurts, right? And I think there's kind of two fundamental value systems.
Well, I think it'd be cool if the Earth was flat, but I just don't know that.
Yeah. Well, check this out. What do you think? What do you think of this in terms of people that more easily go along with tyranny and those that resist? It seems that there's two overarching predominant value systems at play. You have one group of people, and I'm generalizing grossly. You have one group of people who value comfort, certainty, safety, and security more so than they value the truth. And then you have another group of people, which I think you and I probably share this, that even if it's uncomfortable and it upsets our apple cart, we would rather know the truth, even if it's scary or if it annihilates our sense of certainty about the nature of reality.
I am definitely in the latter camp. I'm definitely in that, because so many times my crew members or family won't tell me something because it's bad, and I get really mad at that. I'm like, I want to know what's going on. You think it makes it better? I didn't know about it, out of sight, out of mind. It almost always makes it worse because they don't tell me. Exactly. I would like to know the secrets of reality.
Even if it hurts, right?
Absolutely. But it won't hurt me if we're a flat Earth. I've sat there with Eddie Bravo and Joe Rogan, and I said, let's rent a ship and let's go circumnavigate the Antarctica. And then he actually took us about 3 or 4 months. We actually called around a bunch of companies. No one would do it.
Yeah, I bet. They don't want to get blown up by the International UN Navy Brigade or whatever. All right, let's go into, I got a couple more things and I'll let you go. And I appreciate your time.
I've enjoyed the time. One thing I got to say before it ends, because I never do this. They're trying to shut me down. It's like when Vivek Ramaswamy had me on. I go, hey, I'm not here to plug my show and just here to promote myself.
Yeah.
They're trying to keep people from my show. And people need to know it's at one place, InfoWars.com and band.video. It's on some radio and TV stations. But people actually want to hear what I have to say, the news I cover, the guest I have on, actually hear what you're not supposed to hear. It's at InfoWars.com/show and band.video. And they want to shut it down. So people share the clips. It's all free to air. Take it, rebroadcast it, cut it up, share it. But I'm on Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. With a bunch of guests and everything else that will come on my show. And then I also have a Sunday show, 4 to 6 p.m. We do a lot of other stuff. We have hundreds of contributors that have been censored at band.video. That's the word band, band.video. And I also have the book, The Great Awakening, Defeating the Globalists and Launching the Next Great Renaissance. It's part 2 of the primer book, The Great Reset and the War for the World. And these are really good books to understand what the globalists are up to, and I think how to transcend them and counter them. And the globalists are trying to shut us down, so any support we get is great.
100%. We're going to put links to your books and all your stuff at lukestory.com/Alex. But I'm not done with you yet. If you're still willing to go.
Hell.
All right.
Shoot, I'm not tapping out.
All right.
I'm sure I'm driving your wife crazy down there.
I appreciate this. She's patient.
And your dog Cookie.
She's patient. Next question.
Dog's Cookie, right?
Yeah. She often comes up here, but her nails, we found, tap on the floor with these new mics.
Doesn't bother me.
They pick it up.
Cookie.
Cooks. Alex wants to see you. All right, here's what's up. I had Dane Wigington on the show recently. It'll be published, I think, after yours, because this show is New Year's Day 2024, baby. And then I had people sending me stuff about, he covers geoengineering, geoengineeringwatch.org, Dane Wigington.
Yeah, I love him. I've had him on many times.
So then I had people messaging me saying, oh, he's controlled opposition. Chemtrails aren't even a big deal. The real issue with the weather modification is the Doppler, basically rain-making stations that are all over the world, and that we don't actually have natural weather systems anymore, that we've taken it past the point of natural hydrological cycles and precipitation, and now 100% of the planet, the weather is controlled using geoengineering and using these Doppler kind of rain-making systems and devices that they have in place. So I'm a huge advocate toward natural skies. I guess you could say I'm very pro-sun, pro-blue sky.
Oh, I was down in Big Bend just a few weeks ago, which isn't in the main jet corridor, so it's just crystal blue skies. And remember that as a child. And they go, oh, it's a condensation trail. No, when we were kids in cold weather, it would fly over and disappear in about a minute.
Yeah.
Those are real ice crystals. This is barium salts, aluminum dioxide, other things added to the jet fuel under patents that aerosolize into the sky. But I would love, because I am actually an expert on geoengineering, I'd love to answer your question.
Okay, well, that's essentially the question. Do you think, I mean, it's a given that geoengineering is happening. As you said, Brennan admitted it on TV, that, the
UN treaties.
Yeah, I mean, so the funny thing about that, again, it's them mocking us, is for all the years us tinfoil hatters were talking about chemtrails and getting treated like insane people, when all you have to do is have two eyes and a brain in your head and look up and know that it's not a condensation.
And now you turn on CNN or ABC, it's like Bill Gates to block out the sun, and for decades, he was in a project with the Department of Energy saving us, spraying chemicals out of jet fuel to block the sun.
Well, I
have like NBC, ABC. Oh, the jets, it's put in the fuel and it creates these nuclei to create, blocking of the sun. Yeah, it's all there.
Well, that's the frustrating thing, is when they leak information like this, they frame it as something that we're just thinking about doing this. And meanwhile, they've been doing it since the 50s. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember in the mid-90s, I was living in LA, and when I learned, the word chemtrail, I started just looking up, using my brain, and it was like, holy shit, we are under attack. It's nonstop.
Yeah, well, the biggest
day, every day.
The biggest misnomer is that it's spray planes. There are spray planes. There are government manipulation of weather for key events to manipulate major weather patterns or hurricanes and typhoons. That goes on. And I had the father of weather weapons on. He's like 90 years old. Ben Livingston. You can type in Alex Jones interviews father of weather weapons. Ben Livingston. You're welcome to play it if you want. It's like a 2-hour interview from like the year 2004 or something. But just pulling back from this and really looking at it, you basically, again, nailed it. Well, let's go back to the geoengineering guy you talked about. I've interviewed probably 15 times. Yeah, a great guy. He goes to the conferences. He shows their documents. He gets the experts on. He shows the aluminum in the soil. He shows it. And his main focus is the aerosolization. Well, that's a big part. I'd say, half the equation or more. And then other people always do this thing, not because they're even bad, but they want to feel like they're the cutting edge and they're the high priest and they are giving you the most hardcore info. So everybody else, even if they're an OG like him, has been exposing it, 15, 16, I've been exposed to it 25 years or longer. I don't compartmentalize it, or I don't territorialize it and say, I am the first guy. Here I am in 1995 with a guest on about it. But it just becomes, I mean, great. But 100%, there are Doppler radar systems that have been put in that are manipulating the weather and are being used to ionize those different particles in the air. And I've had the head of HARP when he was the head of HARP on. Why, I don't know. He called, the Air Force wanted him on. He came on. They cut the interview short.
Whoa, are you serious?
This is like 2005 again. Boom.
Wow.
They reached out to me. And I'm not controlled opposition or whatever. They just reached out. I'm being honest about it. I've had the father of weather weapons on. I just called him. In World War II, he was doing it. Ran Operation Popeye in Vietnam. On from that, I've interviewed General Benton K. Parton many times, friends with him, who was the head of Air Force weapons development and was also the head of HARP for a while. And so on the record, off the record, I've been told all the stuff. It's a bunch of multi-dual use. They told Congress in the 60s, we're putting this HARP system in and others around the world so that we can ionize the upper atmosphere and then with sensors, read changes in the atmosphere like a form of radar way over the horizon if the Chinese and the Russians fire nuclear weapons. So Congress funded this giant ionization of the atmosphere, electrification. And I had the head of HARP on. He's like, sometimes we catch the atmosphere on fire. And this Air Force colonel goes, that's it, doctor, the interview's over, click.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so he wanted to come on and say it's not a big deal, but then he couldn't help it and said more. You can find the interview. So Parton was told it's for this, but then it also has other uses. So then starting in the early 90s, there's a federal program with tens of billions of dollars. I forget the exact number. And the same thing was done in Europe to put Doppler weather radar. And it's great. You can type in Austin weather radar. It'll show you a live feed in the last 6 hours or whatever, and how it's coming in. And it's really accurate. But then I talked to engineers before this even hit the news that came and visited me. I'm going to leave it at that. And said, listen, I'm an engineer, electrical engineer, blah, blah. We're putting in cables 10 times more powerful than Doppler needs. And we're told by these people at DARPA that they're using it to ionize the atmosphere so that they can manipulate the weather. Well, since I was told about that, then I saw articles out of Dubai and out of China, where China controls the weather with Doppler radar. And they go, they're more powerful than normal Doppler, but they're able to control the ionization and the upper and lower atmosphere. But it's harder because you can only do the upper atmosphere generally, where it has some effect with like what you call what causes the Van Allen radiation belt, or below that, what causes the aurora borealis. Lower, they've got to spray these different metal particles out to then create the effect.
Right.
So then that's
to make the entire atmosphere electromagnetic, right? Because this you talk about HARP. I mean, that's 1,000 cell towers essentially. And
so what's crazy is about this. It's there. I'm telling people you can go search China and Dubai, and a bunch of other articles are using Doppler radar to control the weather. So then it's not that Whittington is bad. I think he's talked about that. I mean, I know he has on my show. He's mainly targeting, though, he knows the public to be able to, like radars doing this. Yeah, you put a can of beans in front of radar and it'll heat it up in like 10 minutes. The point is that he's focusing on the poison they're putting out into the air that's then resonating with this. But yeah, it's declassified, it's public, it's going on. The full details are classified. But yes, they are cooking the atmosphere. They are doing it. And they sold it to Congress as a secret project to be able to see aircraft or missiles coming. And it's the same thing. They've got these deep earth antennas. And I'm not an engineer or electrical engineer or any of these things. I just read about what they admit. So much this is in the original congressional funding. But they've got these giant antennas that some of them go like 20 miles. And they've got them all crisscrossed, different designs. And they're supposedly to communicate with submarines across the world with Morse code. Okay, in case they can't pick it up underwater with a dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee or shortwave, they pulse through the earth. But they found it's like a rhythm can do something, that these things can also create tectonic events. And so they told Congress this is to communicate with submarines, but now it's come out, and I've talked to people involved, I'll leave it at that, that these things can actually manipulate and trigger tectonic events which the Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, in 1997, in the Army Times in a press conference, admitted our government and other governments are developing weather weapons, tectonic weapons that can cause earthquakes, volcanoes, you name it. Any viewer out there, Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, 1997, weather weapons, tectonic weapons. And you'll be reading the press briefing from him. So exactly, that's how hardcore this is that they're keeping us from the full knowledge of what they're doing, but we know what's going on. And that's epic.
Well, and they, to get these things approved through Congress, they Trojan horse it under false premises of defense, right?
Yes.
It's military defense. Everyone's on board with that, keep our country safe. But meanwhile, there's nefarious characters at the controls with the fire button, right, that enable potentially catastrophic events, like Haiti, for example. The minute that Haiti earthquake happened, my gut just went man-made. And the next thing you know, George Bush and Bill Clinton are on the ground within hours. As soon as I saw those two mother effers, I'm like, yep, this is not natural. It's not a natural phenomenon because you can see the reaction to these situations and who's showing up on the crime scene, right?
Well, you asked and how ready they are right away. You asked the NASA question earlier. I should have answered it right. They admit 90% of NASA's operations are military. So it's the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and that's how they get it funded, right? Everyone, it's exciting. Yeah, we need to go explore space. Everyone's on board with that, but it's like, what are they doing with the rest of the money? You know?
Well, I was told by the former head of the Star Wars program before he died, he didn't give me classified information. He was very careful on the air. Dr. Bob Bowman, he's like, I'm dying of leukemia. I'll probably be dead in about a month. He was dead in a month. Tough guy, pulls up in his RV, knew him for years, been on C-SPAN with me as a guest and stuff. And he'd been the secret head of it under Carter. They just called it Star Wars and popularized it under Reagan. And they had big floating just platforms that were just like metal matrices, just a floating grid. They would send up space planes that don't need boosters. They just go up unmanned with a payload, and then they go up and put their payload on the platform. They have little robots and stuff up there, even then that were radio controlled. And he said by the time he got out in 1980, he was still in the Air Force after that, but taken out of the program. He said there were massive numbers, and part of this was declassified. When he said it on air, we pulled it up. When he had a debate on C-SPAN years before that, the current head of the SDI thing was like accidentally saying all this classified stuff when he was debating. But they already, by the 1980, had upwards of 100 spaceships, basically just drones that have been Earth launched, not booster, but able to. I mean, hell, Neil Armstrong went up into space, just in a space plane. They had DU Sabo meteor guns. And a meteor gun doesn't mean like a movie, they're shooting a meteorite. It knows how to release a DU Sabo that has a rocket on the end of it to get it where you want into the atmosphere or into the beginning of the atmosphere. And then because it's a gravity well, it goes up to 30,000 miles an hour.
Holy shit.
And then when 100 pounds of DU hits, it'll go over a mile underground and have the effect of a tactical nuclear weapon. It's a decapitation weapon to take out government leaders. And he said in 1980, the whole Earth was ringed by these things with DU. That way they don't worry about nukes coming into the atmosphere, blowing up. Don't worry about putting nuclear payloads in space because they could, have a problem and then detonate and cause electromagnetic problem. It could be embarrassing. They wanted to have a bunch of spacecraft put into space that would be nuclear powered, but people said, that's too dangerous. But they actually had them up there. But no, and so in 1980, they had a whole bunch of these that they estimated within just an hour, they could kill every major world leader.
Wow.
And so that's Dr. Bob Bowman, former head of Star Wars.
Let's talk real quick about this idea of controlled opposition. I've seen over the past few years with the rollout of the pandemic and people in the, for lack of a better term, truth community, a lot of finger pointing going on. And there's a certain sect of people that I perceive to be just kind of paranoid that claim, David Icke, anyone, Russell Brand, anyone that's sort of in the alternative media space, that they're controlled opposition. And there's, in other words, there's like no one that's immune to that, that is labeled as that. And to me, the whole premise of, I know controlled opposition has existed and I'm sure does exist, but that seems to be like a mind virus that is put in place to undermine the movement of freedom. It's like a communist subversion tactic, right? Of accusing certain people of being on the inside. Donald Trump would be another one. Do you think there are players on the scene that are working for the bad guys and pretend to not be so?
Controlled opposition is a real thing, and it never really has any patience. Maybe it's around a year, but then it immediately tries to call for violence or stir up trouble or lie about the group they've infiltrated. The real controlled opposition is that we all see through rose-colored darklies, and none of us are perfect. So we're all controlled by our own mistakes and, by things that we've not been right about. In my experience, and if you want to talk about controlled opposition, that'd be somebody like Sean Hannity. Like, he's meant to control conservatives, and he clearly gets a CIA script. He wears a CIA pin on air. And it's the same thing with like Wolf Blitzer. He's former, Israeli intelligence, Israeli national spokesperson. So he's a Mossad agent, and you've got over here, you've got, somebody like Sean Hannity, who's CIA, and it's obvious, it's there, it's Operation Mockingbird, it's going on, but most people toe the line and really are anti-establishment. I've found, plus that's popular, but they'll go as far as they can go. So I'll answer the controlled opposition question this way. There's a lot of ways to answer it. It's easy for somebody that's starting out on the internet or got their own news show or written a book to say, I'm the only real person there is, and everybody else is controlled opposition. And then they'll use somebody like Elon Musk as an example. I think Elon's been an opportunist. He wants to make money. He wants to dominate science areas. He'll take money from any major investment group. So he's got his brain chip initiative, his driverless cars. I don't think any of that's bad technology in and of itself. If you're blind to brain chips, great, but we shouldn't make people do it. But then he's also doing things irrevocably damaging against censorship and to the globalists, and saying we should have more kids and we shouldn't want to depopulate, and the ADL's evil. So whether he's doing it because he sees liberty winning and he wants to come in and be the leader of that, or whether he's a good guy because, he's mad his firstborn son's been taken away and, is going to, I guess, soon have a surgery to have his genitals cut off. That'll piss any dad off. I would think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is for real. They killed his dad in front of him, and they killed his uncle, but he said a lot of things I disagree with. I don't think he's controlled opposition, but I think his wife's a big liberal. Maybe he's controlled a little by her. And I'm not saying he's a bad guy. You have to look at each person by the fruits that they bear. But very few people that have been on the air long-term fighting tyranny and being censored, being attacked, are getting orders, or, there's not even some main monolithic group up there. It's more like think tanks and PR firms and different groups that are kind of, like you said, different mafias all have the same scams, and they cooperate when they can, but they don't at levels later. These are men and women we're up against. And so I think saying everybody is controlled opposition is saying you're weak. And it's also a cop-out to say, though, but you're the purist. Everything's controlled opposition. They're all controlled opposition is what they say. I always say it like, they're all controlled opposition. Everybody but me. Everybody but me. And that's a really sad testament to what you think about humanity. That's not true. Just because somebody's been successful reaching a bunch of people, is most of the time they've been doing it a long time, and they've been accurate. And David Icke's caused irrevocable damage to the globalist. The opposite of controlled opposition. The guy's 100% real. I've caused irrevocable damage to the globalist. I'm 100% real. Warts and all, I make mistakes. And so factionalizing it, it's how we've been trained. Like, there's 50 soccer teams and 50, football teams and, whatever, baseball, basketball. And it's all about what team you're in. And I'm on Team Humanity. So yeah, one of the biggest mind viruses out there is to say that anybody successful must have been controlled, because you're saying humanity itself can't be successful as mavericks or independents. You could say, this person wants to be the ruling class. This person wants to overthrow the elite. This person wants to be an aristocrat. You could say someone wants to be the new ruling elite, because there's certainly people that challenge the establishment because they believe it'll get them ahead. And maybe Trump's doing that. Maybe Elon Musk is doing that. I can tell you I'm not doing that. I don't think Jordan Peterson's controlled opposition. I think as he sees it becomes safer to fight the New World Order, I've seen him come a long way. maybe he's not that big a maverick. He's very articulate. I admire him. Tucker Carlson, know him very, very well. Leave it at that. We hang out quite a bit. Didn't believe me. Woke up 12 years ago, came and apologized, came good friends, listens to me every day, takes his own intellect now that he's not naive. He was always smart, but he was lying to himself, and now is a great force for liberty and freedom, and he's gone through a lot and everything. And you look at him, he promotes just humanity and freedom and justice and industry and all the things that are good and sovereignty. And he's a great success case. I've known Joe Rogan 25 years, at least 25 years. Gosh, it's longer than 25 years. Time's flying. And, I've taken acid with Joe Rogan. I've taken mushrooms with Joe Rogan. I've crawled around drunk on the ground in Vegas with Joe Rogan. I've been to topless bars with Joe. Not that he does that in a long time, neither do I. But I've known Joe 25 years, been good friends with him at least 23 years or so. And Joe's 100% real. And I knew his psychology. He wasn't trying to work with the system and be a pragmatist because he thought the system was like him. As soon as they came after his speech, as soon as they locked him down, he then turned completely against him and said, I'm sorry, you were right. So people before, he's controlled. He's getting orders. Nobody's giving that guy orders, okay? One guy's giving Joe Rogan orders. It's Joe Rogan. And so, to a fault. It's just, you can't, if you want Joe to do something, certainly don't recommend it. So, it's, to the point of almost, he'll see reverse psychology too. He's super smart. But now he knows the New World Order is real. He knows it's cut. He thought, why would the elite want people poor and to kill everybody? And this doesn't make sense. Well, now he gets it. I'll leave it at that. So no, Joe's not controlled opposition. I'm not controlled opposition. Tucker Carlson's not controlled opposition. Donald Trump loved America and was obsessed with self-help gurus and you can believe, do anything. And he went to North Korea and said, why don't you just build casinos and hotels and empower your people? Why do you want to have slave camps and starvation? And Kim Jong-un actually wanted it, but then China that runs it said, no, you can't have it. So Trump is a super optimist. He's made a lot of mistakes, but he wanted to open business back up for America. You could say because he thought he'd bring the establishment into his team, give them positions of power, share the wealth with them, that they would get behind him. But no, it was about a larger globalist plan. They betrayed him. So he wasn't controlled opposition. He thought he could control the opposition. Now he's awake and knows their game and knows I was right when I warned him and others. And that's why they're so scared of him right now. So no, Trump's the real deal. He's got problems. He's not perfect. So when people see good humans standing up, doing the right thing, then you have to ask yourself, are you going to back them or not? And something I've seen with the feds know they're super unpopular. The feds know people don't like them. The feds know people are onto them. They know they've got a 6 or 7% approval rating in Gallup polls. So they called me a couple of years ago and said, we won't indict you if you give us your cell phone from January 6th. Well, my cell phone didn't have anything incriminating on it. I knew it didn't. And so I had my lawyers say back, yeah, give me blanket immunity and then I'll talk to you. But I said, there's nothing there. They ran with the headline, Jones has agreed to testify and work with the FBI. Just because we talked to them.
Oh, damn.
So it's the same thing because they know they're so discredited. Now they can only try to use that against me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, you're with us now. It's a joke, ladies and gentlemen. It's a fraud. So it's the same thing with, people like Timothy Leary. They were going to put him in jail for selling acid. And then he just met once with the FBI and said, hey, we're not selling it to kids. We're just, having retreats and things. And so they later leaked on him before he died. Oh, he was an FBI informant. They do the same thing with Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel's not perfect. Obviously, he sold Palantir, NSA technology, all that stuff. But he's been funding a bunch of pro-human, libertarian stuff. So they leak he's an FBI informant. Anybody that heads up stuff you're selling to the NSA, it's called InfoGuard. They have tens of thousands of CEOs where they come to you. You don't get the technology for that stuff you're doing unless it's not your even controlled opposition. You don't do it. I remember there was a company 20 years ago in Canada where a billionaire, I forget his name, launched the satellite and had his own sat phone, and he wouldn't give the CIA that. So they infiltrated his company, took it over, and so yeah, there reaches a level. Like, is Elon Musk controlled opposition? controlled. He's obviously holds like a 3-star admiral position to be over those satellites and over those missiles. And that's what those rockets are. And he's the new NASA. And I know the people at the White House that were there, they've already got 3D printers and robots on the dark side of the moon. And the White House is like, go ahead and leak it, Jones. We love you. Go ahead and let them know we did that. And then people completely freaked out when I released that. But they've already got all that. Of course, Elon Musk is in the government. And he's making a run at the globalist arm of it. And the reason you know he's real is you wouldn't be doing that. I mean, it does irrevocable damage to them. Now, maybe he's Machiavelli. He's going to triple cross back the other way. I don't know. But, no, this is real. Okay, so I don't know how to explain it. People just need to understand that as evil gets more obvious and tyranny gets more pronounced, that there are good men and women all over the place, and that none of us are perfect, but there are people that want freedom and want justice and want to win. And if people just cynically believe everybody's controlled opposition and that everybody's getting orders from somebody, it's a load of crap. It's not true. In fact, there's not very many people at the top of the New World Order. And my big sin is that I decompartmentalize people in the government and corporations. People talk about military intelligence or the intelligence agencies. They're the most brainwashed, controlled mushrooms in the world. Kept in the dark, they feed them crap. And they fetishize, they've got all this intel, all this stuff. It's all BS. They're the most controlled group. Real intelligence is observing civilization and society. Real intelligence, it's actually all open source already there for you to figure out. And it's endless and it's exciting and it's amazing, but it's not on Netflix. And so that's why they're really panicking as people get fulfillment is not on Netflix. It's not on HBO. It is in this incredible journey of discovery we're all on.
Damn. What an incredible conversation. Well,
you put up with me.
Dude, I'm fascinated. I got one question for you, and this is something I've always wondered, I think, since I first learned of you years ago. Are you ever afraid for your own safety? Being someone at the tip of the spear that's kind of blowing the whistle on so much information. As you said, you've been such a crushing blow to the establishment. I mean, you drove up to my house alone in your car. You just, you got your SUV, come in, hang out, say hi like a normal person. I'm going, man, how's this guy driving around?
Well, that's something they always said. They say he'd be dead if he was real. He of little faith. I mean, let me use this example, and not about how I'm popular. I'm like a potato head nobody. When Trump first got elected, if I walked the dog, my poor dog's dead now, but if I walked the French bulldog down the street, Captain, if 50 cars went by, 3 or 4 would pull over and try to get pictures, shake my hand, but 1 car, maybe 2, would pull over and say, "F you, Russian agent, I'm going to kill you."
Russian agent. That's hilarious.
Oh, hilarious. And yeah.
Oh,
and when I go to the grocery store, I get screamed at every time. Or if I was at dinner with my family, we would still do it. People would come up and scream, "You're a Russian agent." And now I've been confronted in the last 2 years like 4 times. Used to be like 4 times a day. It was still overwhelming love, but it was a lot of hate. And again, I'm a public figure. Other people aren't. That's valuable to not be a public figure. I'm like, I'm a public figure. It's great you're not. Your anonymity is wonderful. But all I get's love now. So the general public is really waking up. Positive things are happening. And there are a lot of people that are getting dumber. A lot of people are getting smarter. So I just wanted people to know. What was the question?
How do
I sound still alive?
Do you fear for your life? Do you walk around feeling as if you're in danger? I mean, I'm a small fry, but sometimes I'll put out a podcast episode that's a little controversial, and I'll think, man, should I be a little more careful about the?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the number 1 cause of death till you're about 55 is automobiles, and I still get in the car with my 6-year-old daughter. I drive her. I'm going to drive to East Texas in a couple of days in the middle of traffic at 70 miles an hour in a tin can around other cars. Think of the danger of that. I mean, and I'm going to do it because I choose to do it for where I want to go, for my freedom. And so I have zero fear of being killed. I don't want to be killed, and I still kind of look around me a little bit because I want to take care of my family. But I know I don't have any fear because I know I'm a timeless spirit. This is just an experience I'm having and a test. And if you start getting fearful when you're doing this, it's like a flame to Maz, or Maz to flame. And I mean, I told you the stories. I mean, they tried to have the FBI plant bombs on me. One time I was covering a military exercise in Florida, and the military jumped out and was lighting fires everywhere. And I had to start assaulting the dude. Oh, he's special ops. I beat his ass in seconds. Need him, and the point was, and they broke in our hotel and stole our stuff. And, and I had them poison me once, and I had them death threaten my family, and they threatened my family. And my family just said, just bring it, man. Let's go. And so I do have a concern. I'm never suicidal. I love my family. One of their favorite things to discredit somebody is they come to your house, they tie you up, they shoot and kill your wife and kids, and then they blow your head off and say you did a murder-suicide. So that's that. If they were going to do it, it'd be something like that. I would never murder-suicide my family. And the thing is, I've preemptively said all that and done all that. One time I was at a party when I was 14 in Dallas, and this preppy rich kid, it was literally a kid of a billionaire. It was only like 15 people left. It was like 2 a.m. Everybody's drunk. And I'm like 14. They're like college kids, but I just looked like I was in college. I lived around there. I was there. And then this guy slapped this girl. And he was threatening to kick people's ass and stuff. And I told him, get out of here. I'm going to kick your ass. Well, I go in to get a beer. And it's like 2 a.m. And I don't even have a car. I live like a mile away. I'm going to walk across the golf course and go home. All of a sudden, butcher knife on my throat, full power, cutting into me, blood actually running out, starting to actually go into the jugular a little bit, blood's going, okay, I'm like, and I just calmed down and I said, hey, listen, I understand you're really upset. I apologize for that. I'll kill you. He's like slobbering while he's pulling the knife in. He took the knife off of me. I left, I went, and I told the college guy that was there, his parents were out of town. I said, you need to call the police on that guy. He goes, oh, he says he didn't do that. A month later at another party, he stabbed a guy in the heart and killed him with a butcher knife. And so I always look back to that moment when I was 14 and that guy almost killed me, that I'm already, everything's gravy. And I remember that Zen moment when he was sitting there, and I remember I just went limp. He was jerking it in my neck. I'm going to kill you. I remember just going, it's okay. And I remember like seeing my life ahead of me. You got an important mission. You're not going to die. Everything's all right. Just talk to this guy and tell him you love him and everything's okay. And just go. And he killed a guy a couple months later, stabbed him right in the heart. So at a party at night. And the same guy that was there when that happened and tried to stop him, and he stabbed him all the way up the arm. The guy was fighting him all the way up into the chest as well. So man, it's all gravy from here on out.
Wow. It's kind of like we were talking about before on the thread of non-compliance. I think the system really feeds on our fear, and I think there's possibly a way to live in a bubble of spiritual protection, right? Where you're not allowing the fear virus into your daily inner experience and therefore rendered impervious to attack in a sense. And it might sound crazy.
No, I agree. You could say it was my own brain creating these scenarios, because I've had dreams I know that come true that are interdimensional beyond that. Most of them are just a war game in your brain. But I used to have these dreams till about 15 years ago where there'd be a demon with a knife and it was going to stab me to death. And I'd try to fight it or whatever. And it would be like, getting stabbed and chopped up. And now those things never come, as I just go, here, just stab me, please. Like Christ, just here, stab me. And then nothing happens. It's like, here. And then, that's it. You just have to go ahead and stab. It doesn't mean, like you said, if bears attacking your kid, fight it, or guys in the store attacks my family, I'm going to attack them. But metaphysically, I'm just like, here, just get to stabbing. Let's go.
Right on. All right, last question. Who have been 3 teachers or teachings that have influenced your life or your work? It could be a philosophy, a book, a person, anything of that nature that have made you who you are today.
Well, I mean, I'm a Christian. I love Christ. And so I would say Christ. And I'd have to say just humanity is my teacher. Probably my dad. So my dad's been a great man.
Yeah, me too. Well, Alex, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. I know I'm a windbag. Powerful interview, brother. Thanks for putting up with me. Got to come on my show if you want to get in real trouble.
Oh, man, I'd love it. I love it. All right, brother. Until next time.
Thank you.
It's been real.
Awesome.